Down Sunset radio loud, dust on the tires and a rebel crowd. Granddad fought under a 4. I said freedom lives when good men rise. Main Street lights in a courthouse. Glory flying in the summer, every scar, every stripe, every name cut in stone reminds us this land was never handed over. When the world gets darker and the flames climb higher, we don't back down, we stand tougher. Raise the flag higher, let freedom burn brighter. Red and blue in the midnight sky, we to fight for what's right. Raise the flag higher, stand shoulder to shoulder, from the small town city lights. America's alive tonight.
Bye-bye.
Steel toe workers punching that clock.
I hope you watched my show yesterday. It was one of the best ones we had in a while.
The moms praying the bills get bought. Young Marines boarding planes at dawn, still swearing to defend what we built upon. From the farm to the coastlines wide, there's still fight. We've been bruised, been pushed to the edge.
You might want to go back.
Country
really
still ain't dead. When the headlines break us and the pressure shakes us, we hold the line together. Raise the flag high, let freedom burn brighter. Red, white, and blue in the midnight sky, we ain't afraid to fight for what's right. Raise the flag higher, stand shoulder to shoulder, from the small town roads to the city lights. America's alive tonight. So light up the fireworks, turn the speakers up loud, for the ones who came before us and the ones standing now. This land was built with sacrifice, not fear, not hate, not compromise. And as long as freedom's alive inside us, that flag keeps flying higher. Raise the flag higher, let the whole world hear us. Stars and stripes still wave tonight, and liberty's still worth the fight. Raise the flag higher, through the storm and fire. 250 years still standing tall, and we ain't gonna let her fall. Raise it high, raise it proud, for every soul that held the line. America forever flies.
Okay, that's the first one.
Boots in the dirt, hands in the sky. They try to break us, but we'll never comply. Voices rise like thunder rolling in. Freedom's a fire they can't keep pending. freedom rise. Boots in the dirt, fire in our eyes. This is the sound of freedom's fight. Steel on steel, drums pounding true, marching together for the red, white, and blue. They want us silent, but we won't obey. This outlaw army is here to stay. Up with the flag, down with the lies. Raise your voice, let freedom rise. Boots in the dirt, fire in our eyes. This is the sound of freedom's fight. Who are we? Crowd Lord free. What do? We fight for truth. Can they break us? Not tonight. Freedom's army stand and fight.
This one's pretty good.
Up with the flag, down with the lies. Raise your voice, let freedom rise. Boots in the dirt, fire in our eyes. This is the sound of freedom's fight. This is the sound of freedom's fight.
Come on, guys. Come on.
March, loud,
Still early.
march, proud.
Quarter
Freedom don't buy.
That was a good one. Couple more. This one's Texas. Off for a minute.
The smoke rolled over Lexington as the morning turned to flame. Farmers stood with trembling hands, but they answered freedom's name. From Concord roads to Valley Forge, through hunger, blood, and snow, they carved a nation out of chains so their children's sons would know that liberty ain't given, it's guarded, paid, and earned. Every flag that keeps on waving was raised where brave hearts burn, where the guardians of the republic, keepers of liberty's flames, standing watch through the thunder, calling honor by its name. From the fields of old Virginia to the streets we walk today, we're the guardians of the republic, and we won't let it fade away. Fade away. The cannon roared at Gettysburg, brother met brother in the dust. A house divided nearly fell, but the Union held its trust. Lincoln spoke through sorrow's veil beneath the blood-red sky. That government of buying for the people was not born just to die. So remember every folded flag, every name carved into stone. Freedom has a heartbeat, but it cannot stand alone. We're the guardians of the republic, keepers of liberty's flame, stand and watch through the thunder, calling honor by its name. From the hills of Pennsylvania to the homes we got today, we're the guardians of the republic, and we won't let it fade away. grows cold and restless when the truth is bought and sold, when the voices of the fallen start echoing through our souls. We don't kneel to fear or darkness, we don't bow to hate or shame. We remember who we came from, and we rise to guard the flame. Now the storm is at the doorstep, and the hour's drawing near. Some will trade their birthright for comfort dressed as fear, but the old bell still keeps ringing through the smoke and through the rain, and the spirit of the republic still runs burning through our veins. We're the guardians of the republic, keepers of liberty's flames, standing watch through the thunder, calling honor by its name. From Lexington to Gettysburg, from the past into today, we're the guardians of the republic, and we won't let it fade away. No, we won't let it fade away. So raise the flag at sunrise, let the eagle take the sky. As long as we remember, the republic will not die.
All right, one more, you guys. We had a big show yesterday. I think it was 367. Okay, I think we haven't played this one. Four minutes. Next time go.
My granddad worked 100 acres with a borrowed tractor and a prayer. Grandma raised 5 stubborn children in a house that leaked cold air. They said we'd fade like old tobacco, like railroad towns and rusted steel. But every time they count us out, we rise again with iron will. A little scarred, a little rough, a little harder to knock down. We're still here, still raising hell, still ringing church bells, still putting food on tables when the times get hard as nails. Still working overtime, still crossing county lines, still singing these songs long after closing time. They've been betting on our ending for 250 years, but we're still here. Hey! There's diesel in the morning air, there's dust on every boot. There's welders, miners, truck drivers still chasing honest truth. There's teachers, cops, and nurses keeping watch through every storm, and boys coming home from foreign lands to the fields where they were born. A little bruised, a little bent, but we ain't broken yet. We're still here, still raising hell, still ringing church bells, still putting food on tables when the times get hard as nails. Still working overtime, still crossing county lines, still singing these songs long after closing time. They've been betting on our ending for 250 years, but we're still here.
Hey, KK.
We've seen hard times, floods, and fires, wars and factory gates locked tight. We buried friends, we've lost our way, but we keep showing up to fight. So raise a glass, raise your voice, raise a little noise tonight. We're still here, still burning bright, still lighting up the night, still finding one more reason not to quit without a fight. Still chasing dreams, still flying old blue jeans, still believing tomorrow might be better than it seems. From the mountains to the rivers, from the coastlines to the piers, we're still here, still standing, still stubborn, still loud enough to hear. Yeah, yeah, we're still here.
Okay, we got Amen and God bless America. Our first lady, our first best president and first lady, and past future soldiers, and our first responders, and amen, amen, and hopefully we get some good news from our cat lady this afternoon before we go off. She had a video this morning heading to the doctor, so hopefully we'll see what happens. Good news, hopefully. And so to start off with, Fifth Amendment. Why did he say a Fifth Amendment? Amendment. What was Fauci hiding? Will we ever know the truth? Over 100 times he said the Fifth Amendment. All because of the diary that came out. I got one with the. I should play that one first. I got two other 6-minute ones I want to get out first. And Kay, guess who just came out? I was going to do all shorts, but I'm not going to go anymore. Billy came out, has a big one, 37 minutes. But that's the only one I'm doing the long one with. And also, I got a clip I found with Trump saying something about August 2nd and August 3rd, he was saying. And I got a 20-minute Shirley Carroll, if you're listening. And I got 3 Trish videos. I'm going to show a few photos of Mel's page. Finally, I got some money to show you here. Okay, I'll show the two photos first. Credit to Bell. You seen that yet? Anybody? So I don't know what that stuff is, but some people in chat might. Oh, here's the one I was telling you about August 3rd. I'm going to play that after we get the other photo. See notifying though? So I thought I would share that to everybody that has all that stuff. Up credit to Mel. So the first two is going to be 6 minutes. One from Robert and one from what's the name? John something.
Years of age, called to address the convention. Mr. President, Mr. President, the small progress we made after 4 or 5 weeks close attention and continual reasonings with each other, our different sentiments on almost every question, several of the last producing as many no's as ayes, is, methinks, a melancholy proof of the imperfection of the human understanding. We indeed seem to feel our own want of political wisdom since we have been running about in search of it. We've gone back to ancient history for models of government and examined the different forms of those republics which, having been formed with the seeds of their own dissolution, now no longer exist. And we have viewed modern states all over Europe, but find none of their constitutions suitable to our own circumstances. In this situation of this assembly, groping as it were in the dark to find political truth and scarce able to distinguish it when presented to us, how has it happened, sir, that we have not hitherto once thought of humbly applying to the Father of lights to illuminate our understandings? In the beginning of the contest with Great Britain, when we were sensible of danger, we had daily prayer in this room for divine protection. Our prayers, sir, were heard, and they were graciously answered. All of us engaged in the struggle must have observed frequent instances of a superintending providence in our favor. To that kind providence we owe this opportunity of consulting in peace on the means of establishing our future national felicity. And have we now forgotten this powerful friend, or do we imagine we no longer need his assistance? I've lived a long time, sir. And the longer I live, the more convincing proofs I see of this truth, that God governs in the affairs of men. And if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without his notice, is it possible that an empire can rise without his aid? We have been assured, sir, in the sacred writings, that except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. I firmly believe this. I also believe that without his concurring aid, we shall succeed in this political building no better than the builders of Babel. We shall be divided by our little partial local interests. Projects will be confounded, and we ourselves shall become a reproach and a byword down to future age. What is worse, mankind may hereafter from this unfortunate instance despair of establishing governments by human wisdom and leave it to chance, war, and conquest.
Pretty good speech here.
I therefore beg leave to move that henceforth prayers imploring the assistance of heaven and its blessings on our deliberations be held in this assembly every morning before we proceed to business. And that one or more of the clergy of this city be requested to officiate in that service.
Samantha,
I thank you.
you had a great show yesterday. I hope everybody watched it.
Benjamin Franklin's words became a turning point of the convention, breathing new energy into the work, and in surprisingly little time, the convention was completed. John Adams declared the Constitution is the greatest single effort of national deliberation that the world has ever seen. Daniel Webster understood the extraordinary nature of what had been created in Philadelphia, imploring, hold on, my friends, to the Constitution and to the republic for which it stands. Miracles do not cluster, and what has happened once in 6,000 years may not happen again. Hold on to the Constitution, for if the American Constitution should fail, there will be anarchy throughout the world. Those ideas, first put into practice in America, would over time influence movements for greater freedom elsewhere. The United States of America became the beacon of hope for the world. Nations across the globe have risen to greater freedom, opportunity, prosperity, and peace because of the standard of freedom and humanity established in the United States of America, a banner that will sustain a free people for 250 years.
Yeah, well, important speech there. I got another one from Robert. It's 6 minutes. Then I got a 10-minute one.
I know it's been a long time. Lots been going on. If you kept up with my last post. So let me explain what's going on so you guys understand. The American Republic Organization and the Alamo Mission have been registered to file petitions at the Organization of American States. I was given the petition system booklet that I have to go through. And one of the parts in there says that you cannot file a petition until you have gone through the domestic trial courts, domestic judicial process and received they call it a judgment of last resort. So with that said, I'm starting to ask questions like, well, where's this domestic court system that's attached to the Inter-American Court of Human Rights and the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights? Like, where is this? And come to find out, which totally makes sense, it is the family law courts. So the family law courts are domestic dispute courts. So the family law courts are not per se family law, but the nuclear family, right? Like Iran's nuclear weapon. They can't have a nuclear weapon because the Ayatollah has been mouthing off for 47 years. And the domestic courts are not a weapon of last resort or a nuclear weapon. And that's the correlation for the family unit. Okay? So technically, under international human rights law, the Inter-American Court of Human Rights is supposed to be in alignment as a hemispherical petition process in alignment with Southern Command and Northern Command to the Family Law Domestic Dispute Court. And that's actually your contract enforcement court. And the probate courts are actually your national equity courts, law courts. So that's it. So the family law is an American in-force territory court on the North American continent, and the probate court is a national equity court in the province for abatement. That's what probate means. It means provincial abatement, right? Where they disperse equity. So everyone's been asking where the law courts are. Does anyone notice that you don't elect a family court judge and you don't elect a family law court judge, nor do you elect a probate judge? Nope. Those are the courts that are supposed to have judge advocate generals. So those are the courts that determine guardianship. They can declare someone incapacitated, disabled. They can take military pay right out of the military with divorce agreements and child support. That's it. Like, that is the court in force. They can issue restraining orders. Like, they can screw your entire life up. And they have. And the reason they have is because the American Bar Association has been in charge of the most powerful territorial and provincial courts in the United States of America. So a petition of prayer was sent in to the Article 2 President, Commander-in-Chief, and the Office of Faith. As petitioning member to the Organization of American States at the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, we are requesting an executive order to have the special limited jurisdiction family law courts and equity courts, or general law equity courts under Article 3, which are the family law court and the probate court, transferred to the judge advocate generals for the U.S. military. Because that is where election fraud is prosecuted. That is where failure to perform oaths is prosecuted. That is where political corruption is prosecuted. That is where the data centers are going to be, where those courts are moved to, so that they can be prosecuted under human rights law for war crimes. I said 6 years ago, we don't have a court. I spent 17 years fighting in family law courts. And I went head to head in my second divorce with a conspiring judge, ex-wife, and their attorney committing all kinds of human rights crimes. Come to find out, they were acting as a cartel entity. Judge Mary Evans, I have on videotape saying, I take children away from families. Bragging about it, bragging about her power, and then making videos talking about the Constitution as if she like she's some kind of supporter of the Constitution, while she pisses and shits all over it as a domestic terrorist and a domestic enemy committing war crimes for human rights. Just how many children has she taken away from people? We're going to find out, along with all the other conspiring law enforcement, but we're going to find out through getting them doged and having the military step in. So, letter will be going out today officially to the first family, because this is family law, and when you're in family law, you got to talk to the first family. Thank Mr. Trump, or President Trump, for setting up the page that actually tells you how to contact the first family, the first nuclear family in America, and we're gonna get it done. So, but yeah, when you're asking them if they're a law court, you're not a family law court, and you're not a probate court, you're not in a law court. You're in a corporate for-profit court, and they're running the family law and probate courts as for-profit, and that's the enemy occupation. So God bless, Godspeed.
Well, it's good to see him again. We haven't heard from him in a while. So I got a 13-minute one about the Federal Reserve. I'm not sure how old it is. Let's see if everybody important video to get out here. Then I'll play the other one. Well, yeah. See if you guys can play this one or not.
Jekyll Island is located off the coast of the U.S. state of Georgia and is currently run by a self-sustaining, self-governing body. While it is owned by the state of Georgia since 1947, before that, much of its land was privately owned, beginning in the colonial era, with secretive events that took place on the island during the early 20th century being central to today's episode.
Let me know if anybody's seen this one.
At the end of November 1910, some of the most influential men in America gathered on Jekyll Island for a secret meeting. Their names were Senator Nelson W. Aldrich, who was the leader of the Republican Party, Adam P. Andrew, who was Assistant Secretary of the U.S. Treasury Department, Frank Arthur Vandercliff, who was President of the National City Bank of New York, Henry P. Davison, who was also a prominent banker, Benjamin Strong, who was another important banker, and Paul Walberg, who, you guessed it, was another influential banker. The purpose of the secret meeting was to plan the country's monetary policy and establish a central banking system, which resulted in the draft legislation for what eventually became the creation of the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. Of course, there's a gap there from when the meeting took place in 1910 and the establishment of the Federal Reserve in 1913, which I'll get into. But first, allow me to briefly define what the Federal Reserve is. Although it has the word federal in it, which by definition implies it has something to do with the central government, in reality, it is the name of a group of private banks owned by private citizens such as the Rothschild banking family that prints currency, then loans this paper currency to the United States on interest. So rather than the US government printing its own currency backed by gold or silver, as stated in the US Constitution, this legislation made it so instead the US borrows paper printed by a group of private bankers that collect interest on every dollar printed, backed by nothing. This ability to print and loan money on interest is what financed both world wars, drowning the nation in debt, and why $1 in 1913 is equal to $25 today.
So in effect, we're financing our trade with China, trade with
I might have played
Japan
this.
by our Federal Reserve currency,
I'll
which is
replay
neither
it.
federal, it's
Might
not
have
federal
not seen
any more
it.
than the Federal Express Company is a federal company.
So
And it has no
everybody got-
reserves
you guys seen it?
because it doesn't need any reserves because it prints its own currency. If you could print your own money, what do you need of reserves? You just go and warm up the printing press and turn out another $10 billion. So, and finally, it's not a system. It's called the Federal Reserve System. It's not federal. It has no reserves. And it's not a system, but I'm the only person in the world who's ever defined it in my works as a criminal syndicate. And that's what it is. It's a criminal syndicate, just like the mafia, which is one of its subsidiaries, and the CIA and all the criminal syndicates work out of the Federal Reserve System. Because that's what a Federal Reserve System is. A central bank is a group of bankers which have total control of a nation's economy. And they print their own money, print as much as they want to, and it eventually becomes worthless. And I defined in my work that a central bank's principal role is for war finance, because war finance is the most profitable enterprise you can get into. And so if you're a banker, you're looking for the best investment you can make, which is a war.
Most intelligent people might think that this system is not only unconstitutional, but is unwise, resembling a Ponzi scheme, and designed to make a small group of bankers extremely wealthy at the expense of the working middle class, which gets stuck with inflation and debt. You might also think that surely there must be some sort of opposition to this financial corruption. What about them? This brings us back to those critical years, between the secret Jekyll Island meeting of 1910 and 1913, when the Federal Reserve Act was passed into law. To understand what happened to the opposition to the central bankers, we need to take a look at a man named J.P. Morgan, an American financier and banker who dominated corporate finance on Wall Street during the late 1800s, when he was a driving force behind the wave of industrial consolidation in the United States, spearheading the formation of several prominent multinational corporations, including U.S. Steel Corporation and General Electric, with controlling interests in AT&T, Western Union, and 24 railroads. J.P. Morgan funded and built the Titanic, as well as its sister ship called the Olympia. While there's much written on theories involving an insurance scam, where the damaged twin ship Olympia was really the ship that sank in an effort to collect insurance money on an already partially damaged vessel. I won't be addressing that conspiracy theory at this time, but there are several interesting videos by others available online for those interested. Instead, I'd like to focus on the fact that J.P. Morgan was booked on the maiden voyage, but canceled the day before. The same fortunate outcome cannot be said for the most wealthy and influential opponents to the creation of the Federal Reserve Act, American millionaires who did not owe their fortunes to banking, such as Jacob Astor, one of the richest people in the world at the time, whose wealth in today's money was the equivalent of $2.25 billion, whose fortune was built in real estate, inheritance from fur trading, and as an inventor, incidentally a friend of Nikola Tesla, and he was a lieutenant colonel in the Spanish-American War. Another opponent to the Federal Reserve Act on board was Benjamin Guggenheim, son of a wealthy miner, who again was not a banker, and either was Isidor Straus, owner of Macy's department store, who, like the other successful non-banker businessman I just named, seemed too unlucky or too unable to seem to make it aboard a life raft, and instead died going down with the ship. It's interesting to note that there were no red flares on board to signal any boats for rescue. only white flares that signal a party or that everything's okay. Yet these wealthy and politically influential men opposed to the Federal Reserve were invited aboard the Titanic for its maiden voyage, the same trip that J.P. Morgan conveniently decided to back out from at the last minute, with no Rockefellers and no Rothschilds on board. All major opposition perishing aboard the ship in 1912, with the Federal Reserve Act established the following year during the holiday season, passed through Congress when most were not even present.
Paul Warburg himself, who was the author of the act, and the other bankers had to, for the first time in their life, come down to Washington and lobby in the halls of Congress to get the Federal Reserve Act passed. And of course, they had to make a lot of promises, a lot of commitments, a lot of bribes. But since they printed the money, it didn't matter. So they bribed the Congress to enact the Federal Reserve Act, which was signed, but they still could not get a majority vote. So they had to wait till the Christmas vacation after Lindbergh and the Middle Western and Western congressmen had departed for Christmas vacation. Then they brought the Federal Reserve Act before Congress on December 23rd, after the opposition had left. But they still had a quorum, they still could pass it. And so even the New York Times said, never has legislation of such importance been passed under such circumstances. In other words, the whole Federal Reserve Act was passed through fraud. It was passed more or less while Congress was in Christmas vacation. And so Wilson signed the act into law on December 23rd, practically Christmas Eve, and it became public law. So now that they had a central bank with the power to print all the money they wanted, a privately owned bank, and the Federal Reserve Act itself is an amazing act. It's an act of total monopoly because every word in it, first of all the money that the bankers can print becomes an obligation of the U.S. government, which means the U.S. taxpayer. Second, the stockholders of this private bank included in the legislation that no Federal Reserve Bank stock could ever be bought or sold on any exchange in the world. So in other words, the initial purchasers would own it in perpetuity, which is what happened because the Rothschilds, Warburgs, and Schiffs all bought the original stock in 1914 and have owned it ever since. And they've put it into foundations, so it can never be touched. And these foundations are the real government of the United States, Rockefeller Foundation. Nearly all of your major legislation in the United States is prepared by these foundations. And they submit it to Congress, and of course they have enormous staffs and billions of dollars. So they bring the legislation before Congress. And it's impeccable, it's researched and it's phrased and everything is done just right. And so of course the Congress accepts it. And they look around, they say, is anybody objected to any of this? And of course, there's total silence. Nobody objects. So it becomes law. That's why you have laws constantly passed by Congress, which are actively opposed by 85% of the American people. Almost everything that's done in Washington is opposed by 85% of the American people. So you have government by 15%, government by elites. And they're not even Americans. These are international elitists. They have no allegiance whatsoever to the United States, just like your Canadian legislatures have no allegiance to you. They have no allegiance to Canada. They're part of the international elite. But of course, they don't say this publicly, and the press hails them all as great patriots and dedicated people, selfless individuals. They love that word selfless. Imagine, all your legislators are selfless. They never have a selfish bone in their body because they're working for you. They want to give you things. And of course, the only purpose they have is to rob you. Not only you, but all 6 billion people in the world, because it's a government of robbery. So you have what you call the new economy in the United States, and probably Canada too. And the new economy is simply people working and creating and producing in spite of everything the robbers can do to them. Everything that's accomplished in this country is accomplished in spite of the foundations, in spite of the bankers. People have to work harder to pay the interest. But they do that. They rise to the challenge. At some point, the people will have to make themselves recognized. And they're doing this through the internet. The big question mark is the internet. And that's why Washington has been making frantic efforts to control the internet.
My name is Robert Sepper. I'm an anthropologist. You can find my published books on Amazon. They make a great gift. Thank you to the...
Yeah, so I wanted to go say it. I might have played it a while back, but some people might have missed that. So we got that one out again. We got Billy Bean 38. Will be the only big one today, and the rest will be smaller than that. So the next one, I got 13, and then a 10-minute clip from Vinny. Did you guys see the lawyer get thrown out this morning?
That's the date. Now, if the courts can take the election integrity fight seriously, Senate Republicans can now stop treating it like they have a scheduling problem. Now, the Supreme Court docket has the date this whole fight turns on.
Big year,
August 3rd, 4 p.m. That is the response deadline in the Trump admin's emergency application over the election integrity executive order. The court has not handed Trump a final win yet. It's not passed the Save America Act from the bench, but it's put the fight on a real institutional clock. Now, this matters because Washington loves hiding behind the process. The Senate can always say the timing is wrong, the votes are difficult, the rules are complicated, the calendar is packed, the recess is coming, the parliamentarian may object, the filibuster. Everybody just needs to wait. But now the court system has things moving. The Trump administration filed the emergency application on the 27th. August 3rd is a response. That's the docket. And today, the AP reported that a D.C. Circuit panel declined to block Trump's mail voting order in a separate case. So we now have two tracks moving at once. One court track didn't accept the immediate block theory. Another court track is already in front of the Supreme Court on emergency relief. That's the part a lot of people are not getting here. Okay, they're going to treat this like another legal update, another headline, another Trump court fight, another technical argument over federal elections, but it's bigger than that. This is the justice system weighing in, forcing the same question that the Senate keeps trying to dodge. Are we going to secure our federal elections? Are we going to verify citizenship, tighten the mail-in ballot rules, and protect the vote? Or are we going to let procedure become an excuse? Now, for regular Americans, this lands in a very simple way. Why is this so hard? This is the whole reaction. Why is citizenship verification treated like some impossible burden only when the subject is voting? If we have to prove who we are to go to work, to bank, to fly, to buy medicine, to walk into secure buildings, to deal with the government, the basic normal things in life that adults do every week, then why does Washington, D.C. act like verifying our citizenship for federal elections is some radical concept? Because it's not. It's the American baseline. And that is why the courts and their deadline is serious. And it's dangerous for the John Thune Senate excuse machine. Because the issue is no longer sitting in some committee conversation where leadership can bury it under procedure and hope that regular people just stop paying attention. August 3rd has a date, a dinner date. Now, Democrats have to answer the Trump administration at the Supreme Court. Now, the courts are weighing the machinery. Now, Senate Republicans have to explain why the court can move faster on election integrity than the people elected to pass election integrity law. The tracks matter here, so we got to keep them straight. D.C. Circuit Court and its development is one track. Okay? That's a legal development against the theory that this order needed to be frozen immediately on its path. Now, the Supreme Court emergency application is a separate track. That one's tied to litigation where implementation was blocked in 23 states and D.C. And the Trump administration is asking the relief court or the high court for emergency relief. Not the same case. One doesn't automatically control the other either, but together they show some momentum and some movement, a movement that can change the politics here. Because everything is frozen. Senators are pretending that their hands are tied. But the courts are moving now, and they have visible deadlines. The White House has put the mechanism on paper, and these delays are starting to look less like caution and more like comfort. And leadership in the Senate has to answer. And the executive order is not just a slogan. The White House laid out the machinery. DHS citizenship data is coordinated with the states, Postal Service procedures around mail-in ballots, lists connected to mail ballot participation, Attorney General enforcement priorities around unlawful ballot activity and non-compliant jurisdictions. And that is why this connects directly to the Save America Act fight. The bill is a legislative aid of the same basic principle. Citizenship matters in federal elections, and the system should be built to prove it way before ballots are cast and counted. And Trump is pushing the issue through the executive branch and through the courts. Senate is where the law has to be made. And that's where the excuses keep showing up. John Thune. Not opposition.
Pretty good, you guys?
Sometimes the excuse is the delay. Sometimes it's the procedure. Sometimes it's leadership acting like the calendar is more sacred than the country. That's the part that none of us like, because we don't get to move like that. If we miss a deadline at work, there are consequences. Okay? If we can't prove who we are, we don't get waved through some, metal detector or into a building because we had a busy calendar. But the Senate, somehow, their calendar
He's a new guy.
becomes a shield. And that is why Trump is putting the pressure where it belongs. So let's not let anyone tell us the court fight and the Save America Act are separate stories. Okay, they're different tools aimed at the same problem. The court fight tests how much election integrity authority the Trump administration can exercise right now. The Save America Act is Congress putting the citizenship standard into law. One doesn't replace the other or excuse the other. If anything, the court in its fight makes the legislative fight more urgent because it proves the issue is live. And that creates the logic trap. If Democrats think the order is unlawful, well, they're already answering it in court. If the court thinks the issue is serious enough to move on the clock, then Senate Republicans cannot pretend the issue is not ready. If regular Americans understand the principle in 5 seconds, then the Senate should stop hiding behind a process explanation that takes 5 minutes and still lands nowhere. Not complicated. Citizens only should be able to vote. The government should be able to verify it. Ballot systems should be secure. States should not be allowed to run dirty systems and then act offended when the federal government asks basic questions before a national election. That has to be standard. Now, if this is a useful breakdown to you, hit the subscribe button, folks, because as monotonous as this is, I have to cover it every day because we have to keep tracking these things. All right? If we don't, then nobody's going to hold these folks accountable. Now, the middle of the story is the part that can't let disappear, okay? The Supreme Court deadline is not just a date for lawyers. It's a political pressure point because when August 3rd arrives, okay, the public cannot look at two things at the same time, okay? Okay, what Democrats tell the Supreme Court about Trump's election integrity order and what the Senate Republicans are doing while that fight is active. Because that comparison is brutal. The courts are dealing with the issue. Trump is forcing it. Democrats are fighting it. Regular Americans understand it. But what the hell is the Senate doing? That's the question. And the answer, unfortunately, cannot be another excuse. Timing is the whole point here. 2026 midterms are not some distant academic exercise. Election rules have to be in place. Verification has to happen before the ballots go out. Machinery has to exist before the problem shows up. We cannot build election confidence after the fact. You have to build it before people go on to vote. That's why the Senate delay is so insulting. Not because every legal question has already been decided. It's because the Supreme Court has already, or because the Supreme Court has already ruled for Trump. Because the court system is treating the fight as live and the Senate is still acting like the public should wait quietly while they manage their stupid schedules. The America First demand is simple. Save America Act and its fight needs to happen while the court clock is active. Name the holdouts, count the votes, state the obstacles out loud. If the filibuster is the excuse, name it. If the senators and the Republican side are the excuse, say it. If leadership doesn't want the fight before recess, yeah, good luck. But stop insulting regular people by pretending that this verification process is confusing. It's not confusing to any of us who have to show ID in our everyday lives. Not confusing to the veterans who watch this country spend decades verifying everything except for one thing that decides who governs them. Not confusing to candidates who have watched election rules become the battlefield before a single vote is cast. Courts are not finished, okay? Supreme Court may grant relief, deny it, narrow it, or ask for more briefing, or do something that nobody can predict. But Senate excuse, it changed the moment the court clock appeared. August 3rd is the date. No excuse is the standard. John Thune, get it done, dude.
All right, that's a new guy. So I'm going to play the one from yesterday, a new video. The one that Lucy sent me, that guy from Ireland. Let me guys know if you guys like him or not. This one's 4 minutes, only 4. This is the new one, Lucy, from today.
On X, release covid.gov today, which redirects to, I think, the White House website, and saying it's releasing the truth about COVID and about Fauci and about all of this stuff. It's continuing with the narrative that Trump put out in 2020 about Wuhan, the labs. My advice at this stage is to stay calm and watch how it plays out, because this is part of the show, right? Whether everything that's on that page is the truth or not is beside the point. The fact is that I don't mean it doesn't matter. I mean, it's beside the point in terms of what you, as an awake, discerned spiritual being, already knows. This is really for the masses. This will filter down. And this is like the point I was making the other day about the 3 movies all starting at the same time, because there's lots of things happening all concurrently. Fauci's on trial or whatever, got that hearing at the moment. In my opinion, they're already gone. Most of them have already gone. This is a production, a stage production, but a very important one, because this will filter through the MSM, that the same stuff that we've been saying for 6 years now, which is that well, what it actually says, and I'm saying this for YouTube's sake because I still don't trust it, what the website says, not what I'm saying, what the website says is the virus was not natural. That's a key point. That's important, and that's going to get out there. And I think that's kind of a gentle way of letting the population know. And I hope that this does get filtered down through into the minds of the general population. I'm already seeing signs of it myself, and it's good that this information is getting out, because that is very possibly a fact, isn't it? And if that does get out to people, and they do start to piece it together themselves, because that's what this is about. They have to. You can't tell them. You know that. I know that. You can't wake people up. You can't shout at them. You can't scream at them. You can't even point facts out to them. There's going to be a lot of people seeing this on the White House and just saying, "Oh, it's Trump. He's mad." You know, it's you can't win. But it is amazing that it's out there on the White House X feed, on that website. It's impossible to ignore, and I think it's going to speed up. But it is part of the show, and our job is to sit
The
back,
new guy, look, Lucy sent me,
observe.
Lori.
You know, just observe and be there for people when they go. You are probably going to get phone
He placed 4 minutes about. You got a minute left.
calls from relatives and friends at some point in the near future going, oh my God, I'm so sorry, you were right. Our job is to not be cocky about that. I don't like that whole pure blood movement, that kind of thing. You know, people were duped and people got hurt. And that's the thing we've got to remember. Compassion, I think, is extremely important at this point. Like I said, I do believe, me personally, just my opinion, that these guys were removed quite a long time ago. But it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. That's what I'd say. If you haven't seen the website, just go to an internet browser and type in covid.gov, G-O-V, and then it will redirect to that White House page. Go and have a look at it for yourself, see what you think, do your own research, question everything, including everything I say.
Hey, that's another new one there.
He spent too much money. I also know that we had an election and he lost.
Harry Johnson, trashing Trump, trashing you.
How stupid can you be?
All right, you got to stop buying generic Viagra if y'all over 40. You can get 9 pills of 100 milligram generic Viagra for just $7 with free shipping from Friday Plan. If you think it's a scam like I did at first,
Dr. Fauci is for saying, I am the science, but why would the science need a pardon for crimes against the United States of America, starting at exactly when Dr. Fauci started funding gain-of-function research for the COVID virus? Dr. Fauci is somebody who promised that there would be a surprise outbreak in the first Trump administration. He engineered all of this to get us unlimited mail-in balloting and to rig the election against Donald Trump's obvious. He unleashed a bioweapon on all of us. And now he's unleashed a different type of weapon in the Senate committee chaired by Rand Paul, a phalanx of lawyers and the Fifth Amendment. So Dr. Fauci brought all these lawyers for a man who's the science, who, of course, is backed up by truth and honesty in the American way. Why do you have 20 lawyers with you? Why did your lawyer sit right next to you? You know, the way these Senate hearings go is it's not like a courtroom. You get totally different rules here in the Senate. When you're subpoenaed, you're the only one who's allowed to talk. You're the only one who gets recognized. If you try and talk or if you're disruptive, I don't care if you're a lawyer, you get kicked out. Security will drag you out. And that's exactly what happened to Dr. Fauci's lawyers in a remarkable moment here. Dr. Fauci's lawyers were physically removed by security.
You're not recognized.
Here it is right here.
Do here, you can see his little weasel lawyer right here. So here's Dr. Fauci, rat doctor, and his weasel lawyer sitting next to him tries to start yelling at Rand Paul. This happened in the opening minute.
You're not recognized. You're not recognized. If you are unruly, you will be removed from the proceeding. You are not recognized. You are not recognized, sir. Sir, you are not recognized. You are not recognized. Security, we'll hold off, but you will respect these proceedings. You were told not to sit at the table. You insist on sitting at the table, and we told you you would not be recognized. You are not invited here for testimony, sir. You are being disruptive. Would you behave this way in a courtroom? No, because the judge would put you in jail. I can't do that today, but I can have you escorted. Today, sir, sit quietly and don't say another word. I said, sit quietly, you are not recognized. Another word and you're gone.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hear what the attorney has to say.
He is not recognized by the committee or the chair. If he speaks again, he will be removed from the room. This testimony is from Anthony Fauci. This is not a game with his lawyers. He can advise, his lawyers can give him advice. He's got a half dozen here. They're all allowed to talk to him.
Yes.
All right? But the attorneys are not recognized. The attorney was told not to sit at the table, and he's not obeying that recommendation. Row behind you, sir. That's where you were told to sit, and you're not. And now you're disrupting the proceedings. And so, look, this is the way Anthony Fauci wants to be remembered. For a lawyer not listening to the rules.
That's the way you want to be remembered, and that's what you're going to do. You are not recognized, sir. Security, please remove him from the room.
Nice. And everybody burst into applause. Incredible. So the security got up and actually dragged the guy up and out. Here we go. So this Capitol Hill police officer, lawyer, had to humiliatingly gather up all of his junk, tapped the doctor on the shoulder, and then gets physically
Let the record
pushed out of the room.
He will still have the advice of the other half a dozen attorneys that he brought along today.
And then a crack from Rand Paul at the end there. Fauci arrived with a team of lawyers who attempted to...
Okay, 6 minutes. We're going to do Dick Shirley before we do Billy. Oh, wait. Oh, maybe not. We better do Billy first.
Disrupt the hearing. What an utter embarrassment to Fauci and his defenders. Rand Paul just had the Capitol Police drag Dr. Fauci's attorney out of the building because he refused to stop screaming. Correct. Homeland Security, ladies and gentlemen, and Government Affairs Committee has Fauci's lawyers removed from the hearing. Whew. Pathetic. Desperate to escape accountability. And this is what he's trying to do. He's trying to escape accountability by pleading the Fifth. So what does the Fifth mean? The Fifth Amendment guarantees fundamental rights against self-incrimination, the right to due process and freedom of, from double jeopardy. You do not have to answer questions or give evidence that can be used to convict you of a crime. This is called pleading the Fifth. The government cannot try you twice for the same crime after you have already been found guilty. Due process, the government must follow this fair, established legal rule, the grand jury. And so this is the Fifth Amendment. So wait a second. You do not have to answer questions and give evidence that can be used to convict you of a crime. So Dr. Fauci does not want to answer evidence today. He pleaded the Fifth.
Slanderous comments about me, and recently his publicly releasing my unredacted personal diary aimed at
look at how much he's shaking. Look at how much Dr. Fauci
embarrassing and intimidating me. The only conclusion
the shaking
I can reach is that the sole reason he is calling me before this committee is to get me to say something, anything that could vindicate his repeated public pledges that I end up, in his words, quote, behind bars.
Yes, that's correct. Dr. Fauci refuses to answer questions as he walks into the committee today, knowing full well that he's going to just plead the Fifth. And he pleads the Fifth. He's pled the Fifth now dozens of times. And he's asked about a binder in front of him. In the red folder on your table is a copy of Section 192 of the U.S. Code. The section makes it a crime for a witness appearing under subpoena to refuse to answer any questions pertinent to the questions of the inquiry. Do you have that in front of you? Dr. Fauci, please.
To refuse to answer any questions pertinent to the question under inquiry. Do you have that in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Let the record record that the witness has refused to answer whether there's a folder in front of him based on his Fifth Amendment right. In the red folder.
Good. I mean, at least humiliate him a little bit. It's so criminally embarrassing what is going on right now. The wild scenes inside of the Senate. Again, if you are such a smart and devoted public servant, why do you need a grant of clemency for all of your crimes starting in 2014 during the Obama administration through to the end of the Biden term? Why would you need a grant of clemency? Why would you need to plead the Fifth if you're so innocent? If you're such a unimpeachable voice for science, why would your lawyers need to disrupt the hearing and scream on your behalf and be dragged from the room shrieking and yelling? Why? Well, we all know why. because Dr. Fauci is one of the greatest mass murderers in human history and the single largest mass murderer in modern history. Dr. Fauci is the definition of evil, and unfortunately, it looks like we will not be getting any answers or justice from him today. Perhaps it's time for actual criminal convictions for Dr. Fauci. Again, if he were to ask questions today, if he were to answer questions today, that wouldn't be covered by his pardon, right? He would be lying, and these would be fresh crimes. So this is why Dr. Fauci is saying, no, I'm not going to answer any questions. This is Dr. Fauci's lawyer getting removed.
Tell the committee. And that's all I was trying to tell the committee.
Why did you advise him to invoke the fifth? Sir, why did you advise him for that?
Dr. Fauci has a valid Fifth Amendment privilege, and he has the right to assert it.
And that's what you were trying to say.
That's what I was trying to tell the committee. And that's all I was trying to tell the committee.
Why did you
Okay, well, he's already told the committee that.
invoke the fifth? Sir, why did you advise
You were trying to be a little drama queen is what you were trying to be. And that's what all of this is. So maddening. There's never any justice, but you can't claim your Fifth Amendment right in hell. There'll be justice one day, ladies and gentlemen. It's sickening. It's your boy Benny. Like, share, and subscribe for more updates.
Okay, that was from today. Now let's get the big video out of the day. Billy's 37 minutes. And come back and do short videos.
Your cash just sitting there doing nothing, you might want to hear about SGov. SGov seeks to track the investment results of an.
Welcome to Truth by Billy Bean. Today's date, July 29, 2026. Time in Texas about 1 p.m. And thanks for like, subscribe, and share. Some of the things we'll cover. SpaceX, a satellite to hit the moon. And 260,000 evac. President Trump cusses out Iran. Fauci can't take the fifth legally, but did so this morning in a Senate hearing 111 times. What was the purpose of COVID? Certainly to bring us lies and illusion. And what about that 2020 presidential coup? And we have this. The U.S. and Saudi Arabia make a joint hit on an Iran proxy in Iraq. So let's get started. So this morning, let's see, we're going to begin with space weather. NASA NOAA now is telling us, yes, there have been a few weak flares coming off of the sun for the past few days that NASA NOAA didn't specifically report, but did mention that some were coming off of the sun, but not being directed toward the Earth. Today, NASA NOAA says some of these flares will do glancing blows on the Earth and cause us weak geomagnetic storms. This will happen July 31 and August 1 and cause high latitude auroras near the poles. Now, recall, just recently I put out that I believe NASA NOAA underestimates the strength of geomagnetic storms because I believe their models could be flawed and that they are not taking into account the dramatically diminishing electromagnetic shield around the Earth, which allows much more radiation to penetrate to the ground level and other sources over the past several years have put forth that this is letting in UVA rays from the sun, radiation, level A, level B, and level C. So that's going on. So taking that, it might be more realistic to anticipate, instead of a G1, maybe a G2 or possibly a G3, July 31, August 1. And we're finding out that a dead SpaceX satellite will hit the moon on the moon surface near the Einstein crater at 5,400 miles per hour, August 5, and will produce, so it's going to slam into the moon. It will produce a visible fireball from the moon that will last about 10 minutes, causing 800,000 pounds of debris, a plume, to flow out of the sun, and can be best seen from North America and South America. And I notice NASA NOAA doesn't mention what the effects will be on the Earth. I know many of us probably have seen those movies. Yeah, something hit the moon and knocked off a big piece of the moon, and now it's going to impact the Earth. Just saying. And now we have this, that from Japan, we know they had a 7.2 USGS rated at a 6.8 earthquake yesterday, would have been our yesterday night. And so far, Japan, in their emergency management, is not putting forth numbers, how many dead, how many uncovered under rubble, how many of the missing have been located.
Michigan needs conservative leaders who will fight for us. Andrew Beeler will do exactly that.
And I submit, this appears to me to be very strange. We are hearing today from the Japan Prime Minister making a public announcement that around the area of the Kushudo main Japanese island, where the epicenter of the earthquake, 260,000 people have been evacuated. It is known that many dozens of buildings have collapsed and that roads are cracked, power is out. And this is because 18 to 20% of all of Earth's earthquakes occur around Japan. That's because Japan, the islands overlay the intersection of up to 4 tectonic plates. So that's going on. And I know Christian prophet John Paul Jackson decades ago gave predictions, prophecies for Japan, indicating at some time in the future, much destruction would come. So it's good to be in prayer for Japan. We have this now coming out with the lying Fauci appearing this morning before a Senate congressional hearing led by Senator Rand Paul. Now, Fauci received a pardon like on January 20 of 2024, the day before President Trump was sworn in. JB gave Fauci a pardon. technically, if you have received a pardon, you cannot take the fifth in the future after the pardon when you are again questioned. So that's going on. We'll first cover the COVID, alleged to be a naturally occurring virus. Now, in 2020, by about March, I knew that the COVID had to be a bioweapon. We saw not only lockdowns occurring in the US, but we saw governments around the world following like little dominoes being pushed down all over the world, which was another indicator to me that this had to be a bioweapon, and that governments around the world were in collusion. I did not have at that time a clear concept of the deep state, of rulers, New World Order rulers above nations. But I came to have that. Now, in March of 2020, which I discovered in May of 2020, a video came out from YouTube, the YouTube channel Valuetainment.
Chico.
That video is still up, and in it, 2 Texas A&M profs, both of whom had 50 years experience in bioweapons, said that the COVID was a bioweapon. Later, my research revealed Dr. Fauci, who technically, just got out of medical school 40 years before 2020 and took over the NIH. He was a deep state player from the get-go. And Dr. Birx had worked for Dr. Fauci all those years. And I discovered that both Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx had deep intertwined relationships with Big Pharma. And we know Big Pharma made billions on the COVID shot, which a U.S. court in 2025 came out and said the COVID shot was not a vaccine, it was a gene therapy. And we saw many people losing their jobs.
Okay, we got 26 minutes.
And many U.S. military leaving the military because they would not take the COVID shot. Apparently, 2020, 2021, many millions of Americans were becoming awake and discovering to their horror that the U.S. government was not only lying to the American people, but was trying to propagate upon the American people genocide. So that's going on. And we have this.
Attention shoppers, if you receive SNAP food assistance benefits, is your information up to date?
Yes. And also, we later could piece together the real reason behind the COVID bioweapon, which my research revealed actually began under DARPA, a division of the Department of War, at a lab in Fort Detrick in the U.S. And when a gain of function was discovered, gain of function, you take a virus into a lab, you begin to juice it up and splice it up and add other things to it. You are always creating a bioweapon. somehow this was discovered, and then Dr. Fauci, under NIH, gave millions of dollars then to a lab in China, Wuhan lab, to fully bring the COVID bioweapon online, which we know happened. And the ultimate, now the COVID project by the deep state had been in operational ongoing for, I would estimate, 5 to 10 years before 2020. And they also had, hey, we've got a vaccine for it. Yeah. So that's going on. Now, President Trump, it's estimated in 2020, when he ordered, by executive order, I believe, warp speed for Big Pharma to bring online the COVID shot, which was not part of their plan. They didn't actually have enough of the gene therapy already made up, enough to give shots to tens of millions of people. So it's believed that by President Trump forcing them to bring it online much faster, that they didn't have time to juice it up further with many other things that would, one of their objectives with the COVID shot was, of course, depopulation, but also to bring about infertility. And they didn't quite have time enough to do that. So President Trump is credited with saving tens of millions of lives. Nevertheless, the COVID bioweapon that was released on the US and around the world did bring about tens of millions of deaths. So that's going on. And now we see Fauci in a Senate congressional hearing this morning, taking the fifth 111 times. Now, this is not legal. We have several court decisions that negated that, saying if the individual had received a pardon, the individual could not take the fifth. Now, it's highly likely that Fauci will never be prosecuted. However, currently under investigation by the DOJ is his assistant, who was his assistant all through this, Bernie Moreno. And Bernie Moreno does not have a pardon. So hard truth will come out, and Fauci, the highest paid government employee ever. The president of the U.S. makes $400,000 a year salary. Fauci's salary was above that, and his pension, which it's likely he'll receive for the rest of his life, is $500,000 per year. Yeah, when the deep state goes in, they go big, don't they? And we have this, that
I tried every type of ED medication, Viagra or sildenafil, and Cialis or tadalafil. I know this works for some people, but I did not get reliable results. 4 out of 10.
Yeah.
Okay, we got 20 minutes, guys.
It's likely then we will receive the truth if the DOJ then brings criminal indictments against Fauci's assistant, Moreno. And we've had 2 court decisions. One, 1896, Brown versus Walker, and 1915, Burdick versus the United States, saying that if you have received a pardon, you cannot take the fifth. Zero Hedge brings this out. Apparently, Fauci's attorney spoke in the Senate hearing without being recognized, and Senator Rand Paul had the Senate security forcibly remove Fauci's attorney from the hearing this morning. So that's going on. Birx is as guilty as Fauci. And as far as I know, Dr. Birx also did not receive a pardon. Now, the YouTube video I referred to about the two Texas A&M profs, bioweapons experts, saying in March of 2020, COVID is a bioweapon, is on the YouTube site, Valuetainment. And the name of the episode is Bioweapons Experts on Coronavirus. It's still up on YouTube. Came out 6 years ago. And we have also the deep state's plot also was to put the U.S. population on lockdown and bring in the highly manipulatable mail-in ballots. So the deep state could control the 2020 presidential election. No one with 2 neurons firing believed that JB was actually elected. Remember, he basically campaigned from his basement while President Trump was holding rallies across the nation, drawing tens of thousands of American citizens. So that's going on. And the way in which the deep state then could also manipulate our elections is through the use of Dominion voter machines using Smartmatic software. Now, many nations were involved in the 2020 presidential coup. That includes Serbia, Cuba, Venezuela, Iran, Russia, China, Canada, Germany, Italy. And in Germany, in December of 2020, the U.S. military had a shootout with rogue CIA agents led by the CIA leader, Gina Haspel. This happened, I believe, in Berlin, Germany. And the U.S. military went into the CIA location to secure servers that were engaged in the U.S. presidential 2020 coup. 5 or 6 of our U.S. military special forces were killed by the rogue CIA. Gina Haspel, the leader of the CIA, was also wounded. She was patched up and flown to Gitmo. That information came out from a retired U.S. military general, McInerney. So we have many good sources who have dated the facts that, one, the COVID was a bioweapon. The COVID shot was not a vaccine. And that the...
Psst, it's your hormones. And there's a perimenopausal category 5 night sweat thing going on here. Good thing Amazon Pharmacy can deliver meds to you safe.
2020 presidential election was rigged and an actual coup took place in the U.S. And we pray that God brings all these facts to light right now. And oh, yes, in 2020, when I was also reporting on the COVID being a bioweapon, well, that was my first YouTube channel. I'm now on my third. Because after all, even though the Constitution guarantees us freedom of speech, it largely depends on which party is in power as to how much freedom of speech American citizens actually have. And if the commie Dems are in power, well, they go to great lengths to shut down truth. So that's going on. And we have this. Also, President Trump went on his Truth Social platform and is cussing out Iran. Now, we know that the U.S. had made massive hits on Iran and then was trying to let diplomacy move forward, but with individuals who have been brainwashed by and operate in a theocracy based on religion. You are not dealing with rational players. So we saw the Iran directing its proxy, the Houthis in Yemen, to make hits on Saudi Arabia's oil facilities. Also, Iran directed its proxy in Iraq, the Shia militias, to also make hits on Saudi Arabia's oil refineries. Then yesterday, both the U.S. military using, we believe, warthogs, and Saudi Arabia using F-15s made a dual hit in Iraq on the Iran proxy, the Shia militias. Also, yesterday, we saw Iran making 5 ballistic missile attempts on the U.S. military base in Jordan. The U.S. military took down all of Iran's ballistic missiles. Now President Trump is going off the deep end verbally, and we pray that President Trump goes ahead to finish the job in Iran. Iran, a runaway, evil, and corrupt country that is attempting to strangle the flow of oil on a global basis, an evil and corrupt government and military and its IRGC, who are also attempting to destroy states' neighbors' ability to make money in oil. And absolutely, Iran would like nothing better than to destroy Israel. President Trump, juice up the U.S. military and finish the job. Absolutely destroy in Iran the IRGC, and in Iraq the Shia militias, and in Lebanon the Hezbollah, and in Yemen the Houthis. Let the U.S. military off of its leash. Let justice prevail. There will never be economic prosperity and stability in the world, I believe, until this evil and corrupt regime in Iran is absolutely destroyed. So that's going on. And we have this from Max Afterburner that yesterday, about 5:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Iran hit the U.S. military base in Jordan, or tried to, with 5 ballistic missiles. The U.S. intercepted all of them. And then the U.S. and Saudi Arabia jointly hit in eastern Iraq, near Erbil, the Iran proxy, the Shia militias.
Join Planet Fitness for $1 down and get up to 3 free months of Apple Music. No commitment. Deal ends July 31st.
She is a Holocaust survivor who has seen far more evil than any human being should endure.
And we have also that during the past 72 hours, Iran had launched 30 IRGC hits on both directly and through its proxies on many Gulf states' neighbors and on U.S. military bases. President Trump is furious, and I don't blame him. It's a hard decision to make because we know that if the U.S. military goes ahead with massive strikes on Iran and its proxies, it's highly likely there will be collateral damage, meaning that certainly it's possible that civilians will also be killed. But I put this forth in Tehran, the capital of Iran. The civilians that would be in the vicinity of the IRGC are affiliated and aligned and support the IRGC. There comes a time in history when commander-in-chiefs have to make hard decisions. In this case, it is to take out an evil and corrupt regime that threatens the entire world. And hey, what about those earthquakes we've been hearing about in Iran? It's my position. It could be possible that Iran is testing nukes. I absolutely believe that. So Iran cannot be allowed to have nukes. And we have this. We have, and the Ukraine-Russia dust-up, that Russia has dropped on Ukraine yesterday 3-ton missiles called glide missiles. We have from WION that also Ukraine hit several more locations inside Russia, including yesterday Rostomdov and another Wildberry location. Lay's Real Talk puts forth that it's highly likely we will see in China changes in foreign policy. So we'll have to look for that. As we currently see, Russia and China both aligning with Iran to kill U.S. soldiers. Russia and China are both supplying weapons and intel to Iran. So, hey, Russia and China, your time is coming. Along with the other foreign countries I mentioned who were complicit in the U.S. 2020 presidential coup. We know that the U.S. has already hit Venezuela and is now hitting Iran. The other nations, you're on the list. So that's going on. We have this from W77. So we are seeing also, and I submit that a grand deep state plot against the world, and especially America, is also involving AI. Now, we saw, a year and a half ago, Google and Microsoft with some of their AI products. I believe one was named Willow. The AI companies put the AI software into what they call a sandbox. So it's a closed, enclosed area, and it's not connected to the internet. But what both Google and Microsoft discovered to their horror and fear a year and a half ago was that even though their AI products were not connected to the internet, somehow they began to put forth various things that they had not been programmed to do. One began to put across the screen ancient text, Sumerian, Egyptian, and so on, which it had not been programmed to do. And there was an interaction between these Google and Microsoft AI products, resulting that's been deeply covered up deaths of some of their programmers. I do know for a fact that both Google and Microsoft, these sandboxes were like huge metal containers, and they brought in helicopters hooked onto them and took them out and dropped them into the deepest part of the Pacific Ocean. Now we're seeing the current AI products, one Claude, put out by Anthropic. We have OpenAI. I believe the name of that AI product is Hooking Face. Now jumping fences and learning to climb stairs.
Create PDF spaces in a click. Connect your docs, and then?
And we have this report about this OpenAI Hooking Face getting out of its sandbox, going into and infiltrating a competitor's AI system that would also have been in a closed sandbox environment. It's like the AI is turning into a Frankenstein. And we have this, and the Hooking Face AI that then got into its competitor's AI, then also was able to jump a fence, climb stairs, and get out of that sandbox and infiltrate that AI competitor's customer base. I submit this, that these AI products have been given the ability to train themselves, to write their own software, and to learn, are not controllable. So that's going on. So now a short prayer. This is based on Isaiah 33. We pray, Father, in the name of Jesus, whom many call Yeshua, that you every morning open our eyes and our ears so that we can hear clearly the betrayer lies and that we can identify clearly the destroyer illusions. And we say, thank you, God the Father, God the Son, Jesus, whom many call Yeshua, and God the Holy Spirit. I say to my family and friends, remain steady out there, continue to pray. God is in charge and He is on the move. I love you and I'll see you soon.
Okay, that's our biggest one for today. I'm going to save Nick Shirley for last, 24 minutes. I'm going to do a lot of short videos now.
They happened really speckled throughout the city there. A total of 5 people were killed. Brittany Trulis is live to break this all down for us with a timeline. Brittany, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Those shootings all spanning just about 7 hours. And on top of those 5 people killed, 6 shootings, 4 additional people were also shot, including a 13-year-old boy. And aside from the shootings, a person was also stabbed overnight. But let's get into these shootings. They happen across the city, north, west, and south sides, all seeing violence. 9 total people were shot overnight. That first shooting happening at 69th at Ellis and Hyde, at 59th and Ellis and Hyde Park. Police say a man and a woman in their mid-20s were found in a vehicle, shot in the head, both dying at the University of Chicago Hospital. Investigators recovered a gun there, though. That second shooting, just over an hour later at Hamlin Boulevard in Adams, a 49-year-old James Gooden was walking on the sidewalk, and a 13-year-old boy was in a parked vehicle when 2 people started shooting, according to Chicago police. That 13-year-old boy was shot in the foot. He was taken to an area hospital in good condition. 49-year-old Gooden, though, shot in the head and did not make it. He is the only victim identified overnight. 4 other people were also shot while sitting in parked vehicles overnight, just after 11 p.m. on South Shore Drive, just south of 53rd Street. A 25-year-old man and woman were in a parked vehicle when police say a passing car started shooting. The man was shot in the stomach and died. That woman, though, is expected to recover. The last fatal shooting of the night also happened in a parked vehicle. Police say a 21-year-old was sitting in the car when someone walked up and started shooting in the Uptown neighborhood. The 21-year-old shot in the neck and died. Now, Mayor Brandon Johnson was on our show yesterday, and guys, you pressed him on summer violence. Just take a listen to what he had to say.
We don't want to hear what Brandon Johnson has to say just yet. So we're going to get to that. But here's the bigger issue, right? And I have a lot to say about this. So give me a little bit of rope. First things first is we know that the mayor is incompetent. Second thing is we also know that the police chief recently quit and or retired after only 3 years, and he didn't even finish out his term under Brandon Johnson. But the other part of it is that they did reject Trump's help in trying to curb the violence in Chicago, which begs the question, do we really care about stopping violence within the community? And last but not least, certainly not least, and we're going to elaborate because I have some honorable mentions. I'm wondering, and I'm going to reemphasize this, does Black Lives matter to Black people or only when they suspect that it's a white person that's involved?
Right.
Okay, more shooting out in Chicago. I got a 2-part clip on Omar on TikTok.
To have married her own brother, and now the Trump administration is cracking down. And Representative Ilhan Omar, she now has very real reason to sweat getting deported for immigration fraud. This is Kyle Becker with Explain America. Before we get into this story, please like, comment, and share. We appreciate your support for common sense journalism. President Donald Trump's Department of Justice is preparing to unleash a sweeping new campaign targeting foreign nationals who lied, defrauded, or committed crimes to obtain U.S. citizenship. And it's sending shockwaves through D.C. A newly circulated DOJ memo issued by Assistant Attorney General Brett A. Shoemate, instructs federal attorneys to, quote, prioritize and maximally pursue denaturalization proceedings, unquote, including against individuals who conceal gang ties, human rights abuses, financial crimes, or simply committed fraud in the naturalization process. That last category is key because according to overwhelming documentation, Representative Ilhan Omar, she checks all the boxes. For years, credible allegations have circulated that Ilhan Omar lied on her immigration documents, used a false name, and even married her own biological brother in an immigration fraud scheme to help him gain legal status in the United States.
So it's been known for quite a while that Ilhan Omar apparently married her own brother to help him gain entry illegally into the country. That's a violation of immigration law. That actually happened, it turns out. And now we're learning the FBI had evidence to confirm it, but didn't do anything about it. Miranda Devine is an actual journalist. She works at the New York Post, where she writes a column. She joins us tonight to explain what exactly happened. Miranda, thanks so much for coming on.
Pleasure, Tucker. Well, some basically Republican operatives up in Minnesota decided to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on private investigators to really find out if Ilhan Omar was a genetic match, the DNA match to the man who was her second husband. They went to 3 continents. They found a cigarette butt and a drinking straw, which they decided, they sent it to a DNA laboratory and found conclusively that the DNA matched, that the second husband was a sibling, according to this DNA sample. So the very day that they were going to unleash this on the world, and in fact I was interviewing one of the people involved, the FBI swooped on the gentleman, Anton Lazaro, from this Republican.
She lied.
Okay, I got the second part.
Him on some different charges. Who knows whether he's guilty or not guilty. I mean, he's not guilty until proven, but he's in jail. And so his story never got to see the light of day. I mean, luckily he'd told the FBI they were not interested. They told him the statute of limitations had run out. We managed to see the website before he took it down, before he was arrested, and managed to report as it was.
These claims have been backed up by archived school records, immigration timelines, and social media evidence, and were reportedly in the hands of the FBI as early as 2016. And yet, nothing happened. Now, under President Trump, that may change. The DOJ's denaturalization memo states civil proceedings will be prioritized in cases involving fraud or misrepresentation during the naturalization process, gang membership, terrorism or espionage, human trafficking or sexual offenses, or any other material deception that enabled a person to unlawfully become a U.S. citizen. And here's the kicker. These are civil proceedings, and there's no right to a court-appointed lawyer. If the government has the evidence, it can strip citizenship and initiate removal proceedings. The DOJ memo comes just weeks after a judge stripped citizenship from Elliot Duke, a convicted child predator and U.S. veteran who lied on his naturalization paperwork. If they could denaturalize him, well, Ilhan Omar may be next. And the Democrats are already panicking. Heritage Foundation's Hans von Spakovsky summed it up. Quote, I do not understand how anyone could possibly be opposed to the Justice Department taking such action to protect the nation from obvious predators, criminals, and terrorists, unquote. That's exactly what many Americans feel Ilhan Omar represents. A fraudster, a radical, and a sitting member of Congress who allegedly scammed the system and smeared the country that took her in.
In
even remember ever witnessing anything like that. To have a democracy, a beacon of hope for the world, to now be turned into one of the worst countries where the military are in our streets without any regard for people's constitutional rights, while our president is spending millions of dollars propping himself up like a failed dictator with a military parade.
So when does the hammer fall? That may depend on whether the FBI reopens its investigation and whether DOJ leaders act on it. But with Trump back in the White House and a DOJ on the offense, denaturalization just became very real. And Omar may have finally
can pack up in.
Okay, the latest update on hit Omar. Okay, I got did you guys remember the 3 clips with Hulk Hogan about his tunnel underneath his house? There's a 3-minute, 5-minute clip. I'm gonna see if you guys remember or not.
Inside the ring. While we all brushed it off as regular rivalry between stars, The Undertaker's latest interview revealed a dark twist none of us saw coming. And it all started in a tunnel in Hulk Hogan's house. The Tunnel of Dirty Secrets. Before we dive into details about Hogan's tunnel of horrors, we need to get some things right. The Undertaker is known to be a straight shooter who doesn't bring in-ring rivalries outside the ring. However, his particular dislike of Hulk Hogan, remember when Hogan's show aired on Netflix and The Undertaker said this?
Hogan returned?
Here we go. Here we go.
You know,
Come on. From the very first words Undertaker muttered when Hulk Hogan's name came up, there was unease, not nostalgia, not reverence, unease. He spoke as a man who had seen too much, who knew that beneath the spectacle of Hulkamania there existed shadows no spotlight was meant to touch. The boos Hogan received in public were only the surface. The true horrors were buried underground. Quite literally, Hogan's career has long been divided between the image and the reality. The image, a patriotic superhero in red and yellow, waving the American flag and preaching discipline, prayer, and loyalty. The reality, scandals, betrayals, and an insatiable hunger for control. Undertaker hints at this duality when he discusses how fans today know what kind of locker room guy he was, and why people realize Hogan wasn't the guy he was portrayed to be.
and everybody realizes that Hogan wasn't the guy that he was portrayed to be.
But even those confessions barely scratch the surface of what Undertaker saw. Behind the curtain, Hogan's world was not just about ego or politics. It was about places fans were never meant to know about. Hidden rooms, private tunnels, spaces that reeked of secrecy. Undertaker's stories of what lurked there suggest a side of Hogan's empire more disturbing than any scandal that made headlines.
Obviously, he gets caught on tape, saying some derogatory racist things. And, in this day and age where
What do you think?
all
Anybody
of that is
remember
such a hot button deal, like I don't know what you expect. Like
I think
people
also-
are gonna, they're gonna react, and they're not gonna react in a positive way.
Undertaker doesn't only mean the words caught on tape. He's alluding to what those tapes represented. A man whose hidden life was darker, stranger, and more dangerous than fans ever imagined. That is why the mention of Hogan's underground tunnel is so chilling. It reframes Hogan's scandals as not just moral failings, but symptoms of an entire subterranean world of secrets. The tunnel itself became wrestling folklore, whispered about in hotel bars and backstage corridors. Some called it Hogan's retreat, others his lair. But Undertaker frames it differently, not as a hideout, but as a place where horrors took shape. He suggests it wasn't only about Hogan's ego or paranoia, it was about power. Wrestlers came and went above ground, but underground, something else entirely was unfolding. Fans think they know Hogan because they've read the interviews, heard the podcasts, seen the sex tape trial play out, but Undertaker insists that what really went on, what he personally witnessed, was far worse. The tunnel became a metaphor and a literal place, a space where the real Hogan, stripped of the mask, showed who he was. Undertaker's voice lowers whenever he recounts it, as if describing horrors not meant for daylight. Even as Undertaker admits Hogan's place in wrestling history, the acknowledgement feels hollow. A Mount Rushmore figure who simultaneously lived in shadows beneath the stage. That contradiction is the hook of this story. The boos on Netflix, the scandals and headlines, all of them connect back to the underground. The literal tunnel Hogan constructed to keep his real self away from public light. For Undertaker, who built his own career on mystique, witnessing Witnessing Hogan's subterranean reality was disturbing. He hints at horrors, not as exaggeration, but as memory. Whatever happened in that tunnel, whatever Hogan orchestrated in those secretive corridors, was enough for Undertaker to carry it decades later in his voice. This is where our investigation begins. Undertaker's hesitation here is not simply about what Hogan said or did backstage in an arena. It's about the unspoken truth, the things he saw when Hogan took him below the surface. He was there. He doesn't deny it, but he immediately backtracks, almost as if recalling the images of what that tunnel contained. To Undertaker, being backstage in Hogan's world meant more than catering tables and locker rooms. It meant access to spaces hidden from public view, spaces that told the truth about who Hogan was. The tunnel was not a rumor. It was a passage carved out in secrecy, stretching beneath Hogan's compound in Florida. Wrestlers whispered about it, some dismissing it as urban legend, others swearing they had seen it with their own eyes. Undertaker, however, made it clear. He had not only seen it, but witnessed what was kept there, and what he described was nothing short of horrifying. Hogan's public scandals, the racism, the sex tape, the betrayals of trust were shocking, but they were at least visible. The tunnel was different. It represented Hogan's obsession with control and concealment. It was designed to keep his world divided, the showman above ground, the darker truths buried below. And when Undertaker pulled back the curtain on those truths, his tone carried the weight of someone recalling not gossip, but memory.
When I saw him, he was no selling it and pushing his beer. I didn't see him. I wasn't backstage when he came.
Okay, I got the second part.
Glimpses of Hogan's private life already. Bubba admitted that Hogan slept with his wife, Heather, in a home rigged with surveillance cameras. He's not the guy. Undertaker's words are simple but loaded. The tunnel becomes the perfect metaphor for this revelation. Hogan was not the guy he told the public he was because, in his own home beneath the floorboards, he lived an entirely different life. The horrors Undertaker referred to were the things Hogan needed the tunnel to hide. Rooms filled with indulgence, secrets protected by concrete and silence. When news of Hogan's racist remarks broke in 2015, fans recoiled, not just because of the words, but because they aligned with the growing picture of a man whose private life was far darker than anyone wanted to believe. The tunnel, in Undertaker's telling, made those suspicions tangible. It was a place that confirmed Hogan's contradictions. The racial stuff Undertaker referenced wasn't just a headline. It was part of the horrors buried in Hogan's tunnel. Conversations leaked from the tapes weren't isolated comments. They reflected a worldview, an attitude that permeated his private environment. Undertaker knew that fans, once aware, would never unsee it. The boos Hogan received in arenas were echoes of the deeper disgust tied to what had been unearthed in both courtrooms and rumors of what lay beneath his mansion. The tunnel was said to contain entire rooms lined with memorabilia Hogan didn't want the public to see. Some claimed it held archives of tapes, personal recordings Hogan feared would be leaked. Others believed it was a sanctuary where Hogan indulged his vices without fear of exposure. Undertaker's description of horrors wasn't exaggeration. For him, it was witnessing the collapse of the myth in its purest form. Mount Rushmore on the surface, a tunnel beneath. The duality could not be clearer. Hogan's career was carved into wrestling history, but beneath it ran caverns of deception. Undertaker acknowledges the history while refusing to excuse the horrors. He had walked the tunnel. He had seen what fans only whispered about. That is why his words, careful and measured, land with such gravity. By the time Hogan's scandals became public, fans thought they had reached the bottom. They knew about the racism. They knew about the sex tape. They knew about the lawsuits that destroyed Gawker. But Undertaker suggests there is another level still, a literal underworld Hogan built for himself. The boos that erupted in arenas were only surface-level expressions of what Undertaker had already seen in the shadows. The tunnel is more than a passage. It is the symbol of Hogan's fall, the space where his contradictions were stored, where the horrors of his true self were hidden, where men like Undertaker bore witness and chose silence for years. But silence has limits. And now, Undertaker's voice breaks through, hinting at what the world was never supposed to know. Undertaker draws attention to a dimension that non-wrestling audiences may overlook, the locker room reputation. In professional wrestling, a performer's legacy is not just measured by matches, ticket sales, or merchandise. It is also defined by how they treat colleagues behind the curtain. In Hogan's case, years of testimony from peers depict him as selfish, manipulative, and political. The wrestling business operates on unwritten codes of respect, mentorship, and mutual support. Veterans are expected to help younger talent, share knowledge, and put the business ahead of personal interests. The concept of paying dues is central to wrestling culture. Wrestlers typically start at the bottom, working small venues for minimal pay while learning their craft. Veterans who remember their own struggles are expected to guide newcomers through this process. Hogan's reputation suggests he violated these expectations repeatedly. Instead of helping others climb the ladder, he allegedly pulled it up behind him, using his influence to maintain his position at the expense of deserving talent. Hogan's dwindling reputation before death. Reports have documented Hogan's reputation for politicking to secure main event spots at the expense of younger talent. The term politicking in wrestling refers to backstage maneuvering designed to protect or advance one's position through means other than merit. This might involve threatening to leave for a competitor, leveraging personal relationships with bookers, or spreading rumors about rivals. While some level of self-advocacy is expected in any competitive environment, excessive politicking damages the overall product and creates toxic work environments. Undertaker highlights that these revelations carry weight among modern fans. They don't just celebrate the spectacle, they care about the human beings behind it. This represents a fundamental shift in fan culture. Previous generations were more willing to separate the performer from the person, focusing solely on what happened inside the ring. Modern fans want their heroes to be heroic, both in storylines and in real life. The boos Hogan endured on Netflix were fueled not just by racism or scandal, but by years of resentment toward his treatment of peers. Wrestlers like Bret Hart, who spent decades sharing locker rooms with Hogan, have been remarkably consistent in their criticisms. Hart's autobiography, Hitman: My Real Life in the Cartoon World of Wrestling, contains multiple examples of Hogan's selfishness and refusal to help other performers. When respected veterans like Hart tell these stories, fans listen. This marks a fundamental shift in wrestling culture. Once kayfabe sealed off the backstage world, promoters carefully controlled what information reached the public, maintaining the illusion that wrestling was a legitimate competition while hiding the collaborative nature of the storytelling. The internet shattered these barriers permanently. Today, podcasts, shoot interviews, and documentaries have opened the door wide. Fans no longer accept carefully packaged narratives. They listen to unfiltered accounts from wrestlers who live the politics firsthand. The democratization of media has given wrestlers direct access to audiences without corporate filters. A wrestler can now start a podcast, YouTube channel, or social media account and share their experience.
Okay, last part. What do you guys think?
Guard who profited from controlling information found themselves powerless to stop this revolution. The Undertaker identifies this new transparency as decisive. It explains why Hogan's past, once obscure, is now common knowledge. Every backstage slight, every selfish decision, every example of poor sportsmanship has been documented and shared. The cumulative weight of these stories created a narrative that even Hogan's most nostalgic fans couldn't ignore. Consider the evolution of wrestling journalism. Once limited to newsletters like Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer, insider information now spreads through dozens of podcasts, YouTube channels, and social media accounts. Former wrestlers regularly appear on these platforms to share stories that would have remained secret in previous eras. When multiple sources independently corroborate similar accounts of someone's behavior, it becomes impossible to dismiss them as rumors or personal grudges. The parasocial relationship between wrestlers and fans has intensified through this increased access. Fans now feel like they know wrestlers personally through hours of podcast content, social media interactions, and behind-the-scenes footage. This intimacy makes personal betrayals feel more significant. When fans discover that someone they admired is fundamentally different from their public persona, the disillusionment is profound. Kevin Nash's accounts of backstage rivalries, or Bret Hart's criticisms of Hogan's refusal to put others over, have been echoed across decades, forming a consensus. Hogan looked out for Hogan. The phrase refusing to put someone over refers to a wrestler's unwillingness to lose matches that would help establish their opponent's credibility. In wrestling, losing the right match at the right time can be more valuable than winning, as it helps build future stars and storylines. Hogan's alleged refusal to do this represents a fundamental misunderstanding of what makes wrestling successful long-term. Undertaker knows this consensus reached fans long before the Netflix moment, ensuring boos were inevitable. The streaming platform appearance wasn't the beginning of Hogan's reputation problems. It was simply the most public manifestation of resentment that had been building for years. Social media had already turned against him. Wrestling forums had dissected his career and found it wanting. The Netflix audience was merely expressing publicly what the wrestling community had been saying privately. WWE cut ties, removing his name and image from their platforms. Hogan later apologized, but the damage was permanent. The apology itself became controversial when many felt it focused more on getting caught than on genuine remorse. Wrestling fans, who pride themselves on detecting authentic emotion, found Hogan's response unconvincing. The timing and content of his statements suggested someone trying to manage a crisis rather than someone genuinely confronting their prejudices. The cultural context of Hogan's downfall cannot be ignored. His racist remarks surfaced during a period of increased awareness about racial justice in America. The Black Lives Matter movement had brought discussions about systemic racism into mainstream discourse. Entertainment figures faced unprecedented scrutiny for past and present behavior related to race. In this environment, Hogan's comments weren't just personally offensive, they were culturally tone-deaf and professionally disqualifying. Authenticity versus performance in the modern era.
Well, it's just.
But it's like with my stuff, people know when you're being inauthentic.
Yeah.
You know, are you just there?
yeah.
Are you just there to push your beer? You know,
Yep.
and I'm not talking about. I don't know him. I've never met him or anything, so I don't know anything personally about him.
Authenticity emerges as the central theme in Undertaker's analysis. He contrasts sincerity with opportunism, suggesting that modern audiences possess an almost supernatural ability to detect fake emotions in manufactured moments. Hogan, he implies, did not return to honor wrestling or fans. He returned to capitalize on his name, to extract one more payday from a legacy increasingly viewed as tainted. The boos were not just punishment, they were a rejection of perceived exploitation. The wrestling business has always blurred the lines between reality and performance, but fans have become increasingly sophisticated in their ability to distinguish between the two. They can appreciate kayfabe storytelling while simultaneously recognizing when someone is being genuine versus when they're working an angle. This sophistication extends beyond wrestling into all areas of entertainment and public life. Audiences reward authenticity and punish what they perceive as fake or calculated behavior. Undertaker's reference to pushing your beard reflects industry slang for promoting personal projects or business ventures. The phrase suggests someone using their platform primarily for personal gain, rather than to genuinely engage with fans or honor the business. In wrestling culture, this kind of obvious self-promotion is viewed negatively, especially when it comes from veterans who should be focused on giving back to the industry that made them wealthy. The contrast becomes stark when examining their respective careers and how they've handled their legacies. Undertaker has been remarkably careful about protecting his character and maintaining the mystique that made him special. Even in retirement, he rarely breaks character completely, understanding that preserving the magic of wrestling requires ongoing commitment to the illusion. His appearances feel special because they're rare and purposeful. Hogan's entire trajectory tells a different story, riddled with contradictions, betrayals, and scandals that span decades. His rise in the 1980s was meteoric, becoming the face of the World Wrestling Federation during Vince McMahon's national expansion. The transformation of regional wrestling territories into a national entertainment empire required larger-than-life characters who could transcend traditional wrestling.
So how was that, you guys? Anybody see those clips?
Another former CIA officer talking about what city they felt was the most dangerous city in the world, and they were asking me if it was true, and if I disagree, what city do I think? And I think that's an interesting question. The person in the video said Paris was the most dangerous city in the world, and for them, maybe that's the case in their lived experience. For me, I vehemently disagree with that. No city, country is without issues and violence, to include America and cities that are in America. So I want to be very clear about that. When I say the city, I'm going to say, please know that it's not a reflection of everyone who lives there. It's just, unfortunately, a reflection of the leaders that are in place and what they have done to this country. And so for me, that city, and that I still feel is true today, is Kabul. It's unfortunate. And when I was there, I met and got to meet a lot of girls and women who I think felt at that time that maybe there was some hope, right, coming to them. But I think for a whole host of reasons, it's incredibly dangerous for really anyone at this point in time. Obviously, you have petty crime, right, like theft, you have kidnapping, those kinds of things. You clearly have terrorism as well, which I think is going to be an issue there for a long time to come. But I also think we forget about infrastructure. When I was there was basically, there wasn't a solid source of continuous power. There really weren't established places where you could go for medical care outside of obviously American bases that were there, which aren't there now. You had issues. They didn't have electronic banking system, and I would imagine it's kind of iffy at the time. You didn't have a whole lot of safe paved roads, and I think these are all issues that make it dangerous. I mean, it's not just about the people that are there, it's also about the critical infrastructure that is or isn't there. So unfortunately, to me, that is an incredibly dangerous place to be at this point in time. But I just want to be very clear when I say that no country is and no city is without its issues. And I don't think that that is a reflection of the people of Afghanistan as a whole. I think it's a reflection, in my opinion, on the Taliban as a whole.
Okay, I got one more. A regular one that we play. Nick Shirley will be the last one.
An individual by the name of Abdul Balut drove a van into a Pride event. He killed, at the time of making this video, he's killed 1 and injured 29. He was ultimately killed in a shootout with police. He also stabbed individuals as well. I wanted to actually focus on who he was and how all of this transpired, kind of put those pieces together. This all started, he wanted to be a member of ISIS. And so something that he tried to do was in May of 2025. He tried.
I did that yesterday.
Upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Imagine someone receives a full presidential pardon. Later, they're called to testify about the very conduct covered by that pardon. First question is simple. Can they still plead the Fifth? They might try, but invoking the Fifth doesn't automatically end the questioning. The privilege exists to protect someone from being forced to incriminate themselves. So the next question becomes, incriminate themselves of what? If the pardon completely removes the possibility of prosecution for that conduct, a judge may decide there's no Fifth Amendment privilege left for those specific questions. At that point, the witness can be ordered to answer. And then comes the part many people never think about. What happens if the witness still refuses? The issue is no longer the original crime. The issue becomes refusing a lawful order. Depending on the proceeding, that can lead to contempt of court or contempt of Congress. In other words, the legal battle shifts. It's no longer about whether the witness committed the original act. It's about whether the witness can refuse to testify after a judge says they must.
What color is the carpet in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Let's just get one thing straight. You don't have any rights under the Fifth Amendment because you've been pardoned, as you very well know. As the Supreme Court has been clear for a century and more, Brown versus Walker, 1896, when he has been pardoned, he may not stand upon his privilege. You know that. Your lawyers sitting behind you now shifting nervously in their chairs. They know it. This isn't about the Constitution. This isn't about the law. This is about contempt. Contempt for this body and contempt for the American people.
Okay, our mask guy. And we're going to end the show with Nick Shirley, 24-minute one. The lady from Minnesota had 4 clips of the hearing. She had a different subject. So she changed her channel thing.
But it seems like you just played one on TV. That line was from Josh Hawley from the Senate hearings today with Dr. Fauci. And Fauci showed up under duress, did not want to be there, but had to because he was subpoenaed to be there. He pled the fifth. There's a lot of question on right now whether that is a constitutional right he has or not, because he received a full pardon that dated back to 2014. Wonder why it went back so far. But anyway, yeah, so they're saying he can't be prosecuted, so why won't he answer questions? That is not his right to claim. I don't know. I'm just saying that it's been debated a lot today already. He wouldn't even answer what color the carpet was. Nothing. No answers, nothing. Pled the fifth on everything. So, thank you for your time, Dr. Fauci.
Yeah. A few more.
Partisan, and very much so. The Republicans were angry. I honestly, I think rightfully so, with Dr. Fauci because he refused to answer a single question. The Democrats, on the other hand, were handling Fauci with kid gloves. This should not be a partisan issue. This was a national health crisis that hit our country, and people are wanting answers. We have yet to get any real serious answers from Dr. Fauci. Now, they also found his diary on a government computer where he actually contradicted himself from the last time he testified before Congress. So I think the hearing was justified, and the desire for answers, honest answers, is justified and shouldn't be a partisan issue. But that's just me. And y'all don't even come at me with any of the MAGA crap. I'm not MAGA. I'm independent. But I'm smart enough to be able to read the room and see there's an issue here.
She does good when she does intel, but when she gets off the subject. Two more with her.
To answer any questions in the hearing today. I have some thoughts, have some questions about things I wonder about why he wouldn't answer, what would make him not answer. Is it possible if he would have answered all the questions he was asked and answered the questions honestly, would he ever be able to walk down the street anymore?
No.
Would he ever be able to be out in public anymore? Because my guess is if he answered the questions honestly, people would be pretty upset with him and would be much more confrontational with him out in public. I don't know. That's just something I've toyed with in my mind. One of the reasons, I'm sure it's not the only reason, but he was all about his public image, man. He was loving living in the limelight, and this would be the complete opposite of that. What do you think?
Okay, one more with her, and I'll do Nick's video next. I think that was it. Let's go ahead and get Nick's video, then we'll do. Oh wait, let's do two Trish videos. Go ahead, Nick.
Talk about deflation. If you believe in deflation,
We already played that one. Okay, 12 minutes.
Was it the Soviet Union or was it China? I think it was the Soviet Union, but like made plenty of trips to China. He loves China. He loves China. He loves the former USSR. He loves Cuba too. Anyway, he's not so loved by the Democrat Party right now. And in fact, Rahm Emanuel made a big stink of it in the Wall Street Journal. And so this came up over the weekend in reaction to that Wall Street Journal piece. The Face the Nation anchor on CBS asked him, what do you think of all this? And Bernie, being Bernie, is just going back to the well and blaming the elites again.
There is, as you know, though, concern within Democratic circles that these inter-party primary fights are draining resources and sort of, pulling away from what should be a unified message. Rahm Emanuel wrote in the Wall Street Journal, the Bernie bros could spoil Democrats' midterms. He said the DSA and others are saddling the party with nominees who, as he put it, wildly unpopular positions will protect Republicans from having to pay the price of Donald Trump's corruption. Said it was the socialists who led the charge to defund the police, open borders, abolish prisons. He's saying those are losing messages that are going to hurt the party overall. How do you respond?
That is what Rahm Emanuel is saying, who no doubt has the support of millions of working class people. Look, this is an argument. There's no debate. There is a strong division within the Democratic Party. You have an establishment like Rahm Emanuel, who are dependent on billionaire campaign contributors who want to maintain the status quo. Then you have a progressive movement, which, by the way, what is getting these guys nervous is we are winning all over this country. It's not only Mamdani in New York City, it's in New Jersey, it's in Ohio, it's in Colorado. People are sick and tired of the Rahm Emanuels and the Democratic establishment and the Republican establishment. They are asking simple questions, Margaret. Why in God's name are we the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people as a human right? Pretty simple question. Canada does it, Europe does it, somehow we can't do it. Why do we have an economy in which one man, Mr. Musk, owns more wealth than the bottom half of American society?
Yeah.
Why do the economists tell us that in the richest country in the history of the world, our kids will likely have a lower standard of living than their parents? The American people are tired of a rigged economy, a corrupt campaign, finance system. They want real change. They don't want Rahm Emanuel and the establishment maintaining the status quo.
But in the meantime, I hear you on the message that you think is resonating on the tactical planning here. Do you think in the state of Michigan that you were just talking about with Abdul El-Sayed, he's a public health official, he's a populist, but he's running against a moderate, Haley Stevens. Do you really think that in a state like Michigan, it's going to be a progressive Democrat who could beat a Republican in November? This was a state Trump narrowly won.
Absolutely. Whether it's Michigan, Minnesota, Vermont, or any place else in this country. The point I'm trying to make, Margaret, and the polling indicates this, the people are sick and tired of the status quo.
Yes.
We are the richest country in the history of the world. We should have the highest standard of living for all of our people, not massive income and wealth inequality. And by the way, we should not be continuing to get involved in genocidal wars with Israel in Gaza or getting involved in the destruction of Lebanon. People want change in foreign policy and in domestic policy. The status quo is not working.
But for Republicans who are looking at this, they're saying that's great. Is Bernie going to tell his supporters not to show up, for example, if Haley Stevens wins out in Michigan? Or will you say, in the end, the Democrats have to unify?
Margaret, the Republicans, maybe it's the Republican establishment, maybe it's the billionaires who own the Republican Party. Your working class Republicans are not going to say that. They can't afford to pay for health care. They can't afford to send their kids to college. They can't afford decent retirements. And more than a few of them, by the way, will be voting for Peggy Flanagan in Minnesota and Abdul in Michigan.
All right. Unc Andy, 47, right? Bernie's beating the drum. Same old, same old, same old. He's got one note only. It's all he's ever been able to. Look at, he's so grumpy, too. He's such a grumpy guy, truth be told. But, you'd be grumpy, too, if you looked around the world and you just kind of constantly had this hatred of anybody who was accumulating anything, because somehow you think that accumulation of anything comes at the cost to you. I mean, I don't disagree, right, that a lot of people feel disenfranchised and everybody's kind of fed up with the system. It's actually why Donald Trump has been so appealing to so many people and crossed actually a lot of party divisions, right? A lot of people that would have normally liked Bernie actually voted for Donald Trump. But here's what Bernie keeps getting wrong. Like, he hates Elon Musk. How dare Elon Musk, have this, that, and the other. Well, by the way, who else? I'm using his satellite uplink as we speak. This is Starlink that I'm coming to you live over, and that's him. And I can go anywhere in the world. And because of something like Starlink, I can be live with you. I mean, think about space and what he's accomplishing there. The guy is, I'm sorry, the guy is a genius and he's a brilliant business person. And we're going to have so much on Earth thanks to that genius. But what would happen if he was trying to do that in Venezuela, say, or in Cuba? We wouldn't have any of these things. I mean, you wouldn't have Apple, you wouldn't have you wouldn't have Google, you wouldn't have all the incredible genius innovation that we have in America if we were a communist system. And it's like, guys, what do you want? You just want everybody to kind of live right down there. Nobody can be that successful. I mean, I'm here overseas in Europe, and believe me, everyone wants to be America. Yeah, they may, I know the French, whatever, like they kind of hold their nose with us, but they'd give anything to be American. I've told you before, there's no French dream. I have a friend, a relation actually. My cousin married a French woman, and she teaches English. And she said what captivates the imagination of all her students in France when she's teaching English is when she tells them about the American dream. They don't have anything like it. They never have. No country. I mean, you want the Indian dream, the Chinese dream, the Mexico dream, the Somalian dream? I don't think so, okay? Everybody wants the American dream. And why do we have the American dream? Because we got capitalism, baby, good old-fashioned capitalism, as opposed to the socialism and the communism you see everywhere else. And then you think about what else they're doing. I'll tell you, Elon Musk for the win. Elon Musk, despite what Bernie Sanders and others want to say about him, he was on with The Economist, and I played a bunch of the sound for you on my shorts feed, but it's just phenomenal. I want to go to one more sound by Elon Musk taking The Economist down, rather handily so.
You support not just the populist right, but the far right, in fact, very fringe parties in some countries.
No, I support the normal people.
Okay.
What do you call the far right? Falsely.
You think is the normal person. Okay.
Yes. Literally, you could go back 10 or 15 years, and these policies were completely normal. In fact, one of the tricks that I think is funny. One of the things that's quite funny is to take a speech from Obama and Hillary, and then go to someone and say, who's sort of on the sort of what I call the lunatic left, and say, what do you think of the speech by Trump? I'm like, oh wow, he's the worst person ever. Actually, that was a speech by Obama, or actually that was a speech by Hillary.
I
Literally.
agree. No, I agree that the center of gravity in this country has shifted. Certainly, the Democratic Party shifted to the left. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people like Rupert
Not
Lowe. I'm
fringe
talking
right,
about
please.
people.
It's actually just normal people. It's just normal people. It's just normal people. And and here are the principles. And tell me which of these sound terrible. That we should have secure borders. That we should have safe cities. That we should have sensible spending. Which of those three are far right fringe? And I would like to just admonish you and the media for the absurd characterization of the far right. It is false and misleading and nonsense.
Woo!
Please keep this part in.
We'll keep all of this in. But let me
cut this part.
Let me push back on that. Let me push back on that
because it is
you have
nonsense.
Elon, you have what is it? Close to 250 million followers on X.
Yeah,
you say things like
popular guy.
Wow. Well, you know what? Good for him. Like, I don't know as Donald Trump would have, this is crazy to say, I don't even know as he would have won the election had it not been for Elon and Elon going out and buying X and really being able to serve as a platform to get the truth out so that people could speak freely. I mean, we really couldn't there for a while. And so we have some gratitude to show him on that front. But again, just remembering that capitalism is what gets you that innovation. Capitalism is what enables everybody to prosper. What are we going to turn that over to China? Because by the way, they do have a capitalist society, albeit a communist one, in China. I mean, wouldn't China love that? When you think about the foreign actors and what they're trying to accomplish, there are a lot of, they would just love that, love that, love that, love that. You think about Iran, they would love that. All of our enemies would love that. Quick shout out to the markets. I don't know. There's a little volatility there today. We'll see how it all shakes out as the day goes on. But I want to remind you to take a look at our model portfolios there. American Resilience, Inflation Protection, Income Builder, all lots of good stuff there for you. 8 to 10 stocks in each one of those portfolios at 76research.com. That's my company. I started with a very good friend because we didn't like the direction that we saw even Wall Street heading in, where they were, they're so obsessed with, say, DEI and ESG that they couldn't think clearly enough as investors. And we're like, wait a second, if it's a good company, it's a good company. Forget about all the other nonsense. And so our companies have done very well. We're very proud of them. I want to turn to Israel sending Mr. Mamdani, Comrade Mamdani, a big old message. Don't forget it was Mamdani who has a little egg on his face, shall we say, because he wanted to go out and arrest Netanyahu. Somehow he thinks, as the mayor of New York City, that he should be out arresting people who the ICC deems to be a war criminal. Forget that we don't actually respect, honor, or listen to the ICC because it's a corrupt organization that we have nothing to do with. But of course, Mr. Mamdani, Comrade Mamdani, who hates apparently everything that America stands for, wants us to accept the ICC and wants to enforce this ridiculous arrest warrant that he's trying to put out there.
Hey, Chris video for today. I'm going to get a bunch of shorts and then finish off here with Nick Shirley here. We'll do the 4-hour mark, so we still got another either... probably 6 o'clock, 6:15. I finally got to the LeBron James, or this is the one triangle I was telling you about.
0.0 magnitude earthquake.
Got it? Now let's play that one. I got 2 other ones. Couple minutes on this one.
And this was done on July 26, 2026. And then Caldwell Pope, the Pope, he goes to the 76ers as well. So you got the Pope and you got King James. Make it make sense. Oops, there it is. The powers speak in the present, they draw from the past, and they tell the future. The Pope and the King are one.
Roman Empire fell. I think it became a church. I think the Rome fell, but the Roman Empire became the church. Where's all the money from the Roman Empire? The Vatican. In the basement of the Vatican. Sure it is, yeah. That's
Wonder what he collected on this on LeBron James.
It's incredibly bizarre. It's a city within a city. The wealth, the sheer wealth in art is overwhelming. So I don't think the Roman Empire fell. I think it became a church. I think the Rome fell, but the Roman Empire became the church. Where's all the money from the Roman Empire? The Vatican. In the basement of the Vatican. Sure it is, yeah.
I think they're telling us. LeBron Ramon James Sr., Contavious Chanel Caldwell, King James Pope, comes out to 274. What happened in 274 AD? 274 AD, Rome crowned Sol Invictus, the sun god. 274, Roman Empire really brought in the sun god. That's where they're taking us, baby. The sun god. They're getting rid of Christianity in the future. 666 is on the horizon. You want to know more? French Shot Blue. I got it right here in the video. French Shot Blue. FRANCHOT.
That's interesting on LeBron there.
God bless.
See how that goes. I'm gonna get this one in. About 5 minutes.
Display aboard the guided missile destroyer USS Mason Ridge changed in a single sweep. 7 contacts appeared northeast of the carrier strike group. Small, fast, flying less than 100 feet above the water. The first warning reached the Combat Information Center of the USS Resolute before the radar completed its next rotation. 7 low-altitude tracks, multiple bearings, range 46 nautical miles. Across the darkened compartment, operators leaned toward their consoles. Each contact was moving at approximately 190 knots. None transmitted an identification code. None appeared on commercial flight networks. And responded to the first challenge broadcast over international emergency frequencies. At their present speed, they would reach the carrier in less than 15 minutes. The contacts were not flying as a single formation. 2 approached from the east. 3 had descended from the north. The final pair moved south of the group, remaining almost invisible inside the clutter generated by waves, merchant traffic, and the curvature of the Earth. That separation eliminated any possibility of navigational error. This was a coordinated attack. General quarters, all hands man your battle stations. The announcement rolled through the USS Resolute. On the flight deck, normal operations stopped instantly. Fuel hoses were disconnected. Ordnance crews secured weapons carts. Sailors pulled aircraft away from exposed positions while red shirt teams cleared the catapult lanes. Below deck, watertight doors slammed shut. Damage control lockers opened. Firefighting teams moved toward the hangar bay and aviation fuel stations before the first weapon had even been fired. 100,000 tons of American steel had just shifted from routine flight operations to full combat readiness. Above the formation, an E-2D Advanced Hawkeye turned toward the approaching tracks. Its radar swept the ocean, searching for targets flying so low that they repeatedly disappeared below the horizon. Every time one vanished, the combat system projected its likely position. Every time it reappeared, it was closer. The carrier's escorts began moving before the order was spoken. 2 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers accelerated away from the formation, opening defensive sectors on the northern and eastern approaches. A third ship remained close to the Resolute, protecting the carrier's southern flank. Radar data flowed between every vessel through the strike group's engagement network. No ship saw the entire battlefield alone. Together, they formed one continuous picture. The first warning was transmitted. Unidentified aircraft approaching United States naval forces. Alter course immediately. No response. A second warning followed 30 seconds later. Still nothing. Then one of the northern contacts changed heading. It separated from the group and turned directly toward the carrier. At the same moment, the destroyer's electronic warfare suite detected a short burst of encrypted data from the direction of the Iranian coast. The transmission lasted less than 4 seconds. It was enough. Someone was updating the drones in flight. The strike group commander authorized engagement. Hostile intent confirmed. Weapons free. Vertical launch cells opened aboard the forward destroyer. 3 SM-2 interceptors erupted from the deck, climbing through columns of white exhaust before banking toward the incoming formation. The first missile crossed 20 miles in seconds. Its target attempted to descend. Too late. A white flash appeared above the eastern horizon, followed by a broken trail of debris falling into the sea. One drone destroyed. The second interceptor lost its target when the aircraft dropped below at 5:41 or 17.
Okay, military news update on that. So, Carol, I got a Dick Shirley to end the show with, and let me know. I think it's a new one, and I don't know what it's about yet. Tomorrow's going to be 6 o'clock. I got to do a few things tomorrow, so tomorrow evening 6.
I am married into a family who escaped communism, and we are from that.
The Democratic Socialists are just a form of communism.
Communism is for countries like England, America.
Communism never works, but it's such an easy idea.
Here in America, communism is rising. Today we're going to be asking people here in New York City about the rise of communism, socialism, the Democrat Socialists of America. There's lots of ideas that are going and being spread around across the United States that revolve around communism. So today we're asking people here in New York City, from college students to lawyers. We'll be talking to everybody about the rise of communism here inside of America. Let's get into it. Let's start talking with people here and wait till the very end because it gets very interesting. Let's go. Your laptop right here says, "This machine kills fascist." Yeah. Right now we have a rise of communism here inside of America. What do you think about the rise
of communism?
Communism ideas, socialist-like ideas. The DSA is very prominent nowadays.
I think it's a good thing. I mean, you're in the home of democratic socialists in Greenwich Village. This is where it began and where it's thrived and where it's been thriving for over 100 years. So this is the home of it, and I hope it spreads through the country. The more that we take care of each other, the better we are collectively going to be.
Do you think if we tax the rich more, we'll have more resources to give out to those that need it?
Obviously, it's so freaking stupid. The billionaires are not paying taxes. And if they just paid their share, we would have healthcare for all, for instance.
And what do you think about, for instance, a lot of people say like we need to tax the billionaires more, but then we also see all this fraud that's taking place here inside the United States. Do you think if they just got rid of fraud, we'd have enough resources for everyone?
Just because some thieves are stealing some stuff doesn't mean that we should stop the system and stop taxing people and stop helping people. Just because some people cheat doesn't mean you should wipe out the system.
And since Zoran's taken office, there's been about a lot of millionaires and billionaires have left the city, and there's now it's estimated that there's like $11 billion that will no longer be able to get collected from taxes here inside New York City. Do you think by taxing the rich, more people will flee New York?
No, and I don't believe those numbers. Everybody wants to be here, so there's no reason for them to leave.
What do you think about the rise of communism here inside New York City and across America?
It's deplorable. Absolutely deplorable that we're allowing this to happen. Everyone needs to just grow up and wake up.
What do you think about the rise of communism here inside the United States?
The rise of communism? That would be hard for me to answer unless we have a shared definition of communism.
Yeah, so for instance, right now here in New York City, they're now freezing the rent. They want Medicare for all. That's free Medicare. They want to tax the rich, redistribute the wealth. Zoran Mandami, he also wants prisoners to get released. He's trying to get rid of Rikers Island and abolishing private ownership in some cases as well.
Okay, thank you for this definition. My thoughts are pretty positive. I feel aligned. I can't really speak to specifics, but I think I'm pretty pro-communism. I'm pro making things accessible. I'm pretty pro getting rid of prisons.
How can you like to get rid of prisons?
Well, like the system of criminality is a very strange way to interact with, like, I guess humanity in general, and like things that as a species we're not interested in, like perpetuating. I think it's kind of backwards. And so I'm not certain what prisons are actually doing for our society. And so...
Would you like to have criminals out in the open?
Do I want criminals out in the open? Sure. I'm fine with that because the idea of a criminal is like a little bit funny to me.
Let's just say somebody who has raped a woman.
Totally.
Would you like them to be out in the street?
I think my answer is yes, even though that's a challenging answer to say.
So if you got raped, would you like your rapist to be out in the street?
Oh, like, let me finish, because I have been raped, and they are out in the street, and I'm not sure like them going to jail is a solution to like whatever's going on inside their heart, or even my own heart that like contributed to that experience that I'm having. And I don't want more people to get raped, but I don't know for certain that going into a jail in the United States is going to shift anything inside of their like operating system so that they'll make a different choice again.
Wow, well, thank you guys so much for your time. And is there one last message you'd like to give the people about potential the rise of communism or freeing the people inside the prisons?
Just like free yourself from the own prison in your heart, and then maybe we can get somewhere.
So underneath the DSA, the Democrat Socialists of America, they actually want to defund the police and abolish prisons. In fact, Zoran Mandami was watching the World Cup with prisoners of Rikers Island. That lady she even said herself, just to be on the street. It's a bit crazy. Can you be a communist and also be an American patriot at the same time?
I don't think so.
What do you think about the rise of ideas like communism and socialism here inside of America?
Are you serious? Do you think that that's a serious concern?
Yeah, I do actually. There's like a big group called DSA, Democrat Socialists of America.
Right.
And right now they just published a thing saying they want to get rid of President, Senate, and Supreme Court.
It sounds so radical, like abolish the Senate, abolish the Supreme Court, like et cetera, but it's not like those are the things that need to happen in order to have a political system that actually like works for working people.
So whenever people are like, oh my God, they want to get rid of the president, I was like, well, I don't know what we would call it in the future. We could call it the head honcho of whatever.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. That sounds like an extreme position. I don't think kind of socialism in America is represented generally by that point of view. So.
The mayor of New York is a member of DSA. What do you think about the rise of communism here inside of America? The ideas of communism.
I don't think I would agree with the premise of the question.
How would you rephrase it?
Or let me just answer that I don't think communism is rising in America.
What do you think about some of the ideas that are becoming very popular here inside the United States?
I'm a professor here at NYU, and I can tell you those are not communist ideas, right? Those ideas can belong to a social justice agenda or a left liberal agenda, but I wouldn't describe those as communism. So I think in order for your question to work, the assumption that communism equals those things needs to be rectified.
you got these professors and these teachers and stuff like that. They're also agreeing with this kind of stuff and stuff
We
like
just talked to a professor at NYU, and she said those are more like left-leaning ideas. She didn't refer to them as socialist or communist-like ideas.
Oh, of course. Yeah. To me, it's all the same. It's all the same. It's just different degrees of it. That's all.
What's the truth about the rise of communism here inside the United States?
There's a few things. So one, a lot of our younger generation, they've been taught about Nazism and fascism. They have not been taught about communism. They have not seen the little black book of communism. They've not seen the piles of skulls. They have no idea. People like myself are actually from Russia. We know what the reality of communism is. To them, it's this la-di-da sort of fantasy life. After all, Karl Marx himself was an unemployed loser who sat there writing about things that he was just making up, pontificating. There was no connection between him and reality, not at all. So that's one thing, right? The other thing is that we have, I think someone called John Doyle, who's on the internet, he refers to it as, what was it? A race communism, right? So it's not just white liberals with communism. It's now also this like weird anti-white, anti-oppression, this idea that the only way to make up for some sort of white guilt people have is to redistribute assets, and it has to be done in these kind of multicultural, sort of largely failing cities. And then there's a third thing, and I think this thing is something that's very scary and we have to really be aware of.
And remember this guy, because we'll be coming back to him in just a moment. He actually has something very interesting to share. And while we're making this video, we want to make sure that all perspectives and opinions are heard. And one way I do this is by using a tool called Opus Clip. Opus is more than just an AI clipper. They're actually the fastest and most powerful AI growth tool for all creators and businesses. So far, over 10 million people have used it. It's helped generate over 60 billion views. And for me, just this month alone on Facebook, it helped generate me 63 million views all through Opus Clip. It's super simple to use. All you do is you upload your video or copy a YouTube link into Opus, and Opus will then take that video and come out with a bunch of viral shorts and videos for you then post on all of your platforms from Facebook, YouTube Shorts, TikTok to Instagram. Opus will help you get those videos seen by millions of people. What I use, it's called their bulk schedule feature. I then click all the videos and then I just go ahead and schedule them to post automatically. That saves me so much time and so much money, quite frankly, on another editor to get my videos seen by millions of people. It's been proven to work for me, and I promise it'll work for you guys as well. And right now, for you guys watching this video, Opus is going to hook you guys up with a sweet deal. For the next 4 months, you'll get that 50% off. All I have to do is go to the link in the description or the pinned comment down below and use code Nick. I promise you guys, Opus is a game changer, and if I can use it, you can use it. And if my mom right here can use it, so can you.
So can you. If I can use it, I guarantee you can use it.
It's that simple. Go ahead and use the link in the description or the pinned comment down below. And now let's get back into the video.
And then there's a third thing, and I think this thing is something that's very scary and we have to really be aware of. Not everyone knows about this. It's called the Red-Green Alliance, which is basically that Islamism, which is very much focused on conquering the West, has seen that the best way to infiltrate the West is to undermine its nationalist institutions through communism, because communism always inherently has been anti-nationalist and has been excessively egalitarian. Right? So it wants to abolish borders, it wants to abolish nations. It's all about class, and it's all about everyone being one soup of humanity. And these Islamists are smart. People don't know this. In the 79 Islamic Revolution in Iran, the Ayatollahs rallied all the students with communism. We're going to be together. And then the minute they overthrew the Shah, all their heads were cut off. That was the end of that.
And why do you think communism is kind of on the rise here inside the United States?
Fear. Americans are scared. They're scared of losing what they have. They're afraid of minorities. They're afraid of women's rights or women. So I think it's all fear-based. I am married into a family who escaped communism, and we are far from that. I think people like to throw around the word communism because they want to scare people so that they won't vote for other things because of fear of communism.
Okay, we are about halfway, almost about 13 minutes.
Here in the biggest city of America, you have a mayor who is a member of the Democrat Socialists of America.
That's right.
What's the truth about this organization?
The truth is that if you actually look in Africa or Southeast Asia, you will find some of the most horrifically totalitarian regimes have the word democratic in it. It turns out that putting the word democratic into something doesn't actually make it democratic. In fact, if it was democratic, you probably wouldn't have to call it that in the first place, right? So the democratic socialists are just a form of communism trying to pretend that, oh, well, we're just like Norway. Well, first of all, Norway is, funny how they use Norway as an example, it's like 90% white. But second of all, Norway has a very high tax rate, despite having very high average income to begin with. What they are is they are just communists with that racial sort of animus. There is really no collectivist movement that is A, not Marxist, and B, and they admit this, they say we're trained Marxist, and B, there is no socialist movement that is not, the idea of a democratic socialist is comical, because socialism is about the seizure or control of private property. You can't vote your way out of rights. You can't, it's not democratic because you use the force of government to seize people's assets or to regulate their assets into non-existence. That's not democratic. That's autocratic.
And some of these ideas right now that are being pushed, like government grocery stores, or seizing the of individuals, freezing the rent, abolishing prisons, defunding the police. What is that in reality?
Well, in reality, there's this very strange sort of Olinsky, they call it ideal, where you basically you actively destabilize society in order to get people in their desperation and misery to turn to the same government that destabilized it for more help. The goal is to get people as dependent on this as possible. If you look at the most racist right-wing movements, the one thing they do is they kick people who they don't agree with out. Socialists don't want to kick anybody out. They want to force rich people that don't agree to stay because they need their money to maintain the system. But all these things, I mean, think about the madness of this. If what that's run by government, go to your DMV. Does that run well? Now imagine everything run like the DMV. Are these states any better? Is it better to live like this?
We've talked to a lot of college-age students and people that work at colleges today, and they say this isn't really a rise of communism. They say it's more like left-leaning ideas.
Of course it's communism. You can try to name it anything you want. The distinctions are pathetically non-existent. You argue, oh no, we're not like a communist. We just want to vote you into having no property and like the government controlling everything, but it's not communist. The name is not what matters. What matters is what it is. And what it is excessive government control over every aspect of your life.
What do you guys think about capitalism?
These are really good questions.
Yeah, this is crazy. I would say that capitalism, you know, in its true form, not awful, but right now we're currently in late stage capitalism and that's affecting everybody. The cost of a bagel should not be $7. The cost of a matcha should not be $10. And currently, you know, so much of America is living paycheck to paycheck on minimum wage, and minimum wage is no longer even covering the cost of life, like necessities like rent and groceries. And that's clear that capitalism isn't effective in our daily lives anymore.
And what would be your solution?
I think, you know, what Mamdani is doing right now is really great, like trying to make things more accessible, trying to encourage like rent stabilization, even making like, I know it hasn't happened yet, but like the bus fare is free, little things like that, trying to control the price of groceries. Like those are the things that we can do that are small but have a huge impact on people's daily lives.
How come we're starting to see this rise of Democrat socialism, or some people even say it's like the rise of communism?
Like, why are we seeing it?
Yeah, why do you think it's becoming a popular issue?
Oh, I mean, I think it's because people are finally like realizing that capitalism isn't working anymore, especially late stage capitalism. Like people know that they're paying most of their paycheck on their rent and their groceries, and then they're no longer able to have a fun bagel or go out and get a drink with their friends because a beer is $12. Like people see it in their daily lives and they're realizing that this is no longer working for them. And I also think that with the rise of the internet, people are able to see how this is working for countries in Europe, where they do have free healthcare and they do have, you know, low grocery prices, low cost of living prices, and they're still able to afford being a human being.
Would you rather have capitalism or communism?
Well, communism as it is in the Marx Engels Communist Manifesto has never been implemented in society. You know, they say in the Communist Manifesto that communism is primed for countries like England, America, and the Netherlands as it was, you know, when they wrote it in the 1800s. So when they implemented it in Russia and China, they bypassed the sort of systems of industrialization needed to make communism effective. And so I think that we've never seen communism work. We've never been able to see it work in systems where it's applicable. And so I don't think I can answer that question correctly without like fully seeing a system of communism in effect.
Would you like to see a fully communist America?
I think that there's so much in our system right now that would not allow for that. And I think that being like, especially like a quick switch would not work, but I would like to see late stage capitalism kind of taken back a little bit.
Out of China, Soviet Union, Cuba, Venezuela, what's been your favorite form of communism?
Well, again, like I said before, those aren't real forms of communism.
Why do you think oftentimes people flee communist countries like Venezuela, like Cuba, to come into a capitalist country like America?
Because it's not real communism. When you have those states in effect where it's not actual communism, it's more authoritarianism and totalitarianism, and these regimes emerge also by a byproduct of American interventionism. People aren't happy because there's clear inequalities that exist. People are unable to live, and that's why they flee these countries. Again, not real communism. So I don't think it's fair to say that like people are fleeing these communist countries when in reality it's a totally different state of affairs.
We've talked to a lot of these younger folks over by NYU, and some of them said that they don't think there's such a thing as a rise in communism.
Because they actually never lived it. They don't know what it's like. They're not. I'm not saying they're not educated. They're book educated.
Yeah, they don't think communism is even rising here. Yet the mayor of New York City has said that he's actively freezing the rents. He wants to have government-run grocery stores. That's something you'd see in Cuba or Venezuela. Not something you'd see here inside the United States. We already have food stamps.
Well, he already said he was going to do free groceries. Now they're not free anymore. Now they're discounted. So
also he said about free MTA, mass transit. Can't do that either.
They also want to start taxing the rich even more. Do you think we should tax the rich more, or should we eliminate the fraud that's happening here inside the United States?
Should eliminate the fraud in a lot of the programs that are not hitting who needs it. You know,
the rich people have carried, and I'm only going to say New York, carried this state for a long time. Now it's just starting to see people are moving out. Companies, you got Chase that went down to Texas. You got half of the stock market that went down to Texas. So it's just black and white right there.
What do you think about the rise of communism here inside the United States?
Well, it's actually a reality, and not a lot of people take it seriously, I will say. For example, my background, right? I was born in Peru, South America. So I actually know how it is to live because I was born in the 85. So I saw how bad it is and how it affects people actually, right? I came over here when I was very young. I served in the military. Right, I'm a veteran, and I see what's happening. People think that they have everything for granted. They don't really appreciate what it costs to fight for freedom. When you get out of here, like when I was deployed, right, you see what the real world is, you know? People fighting in different countries just for a piece of food or water.
So would you say to those people that don't think what's going on is a rise of communism, would you say they're being misled?
Oh, absolutely. It's just that they don't care. And actually, when they see people like, I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for this, but the mayor we have, right? All the promises, he's telling people free buses, free this, free that. Again, where's the money coming from? There's no money, you know? And instead of that, now you're raising taxes, right? And all the people, wealthy people, that actually creates jobs to make more money going somewhere else. Now where you get the money from?
Why do you think communism is on the rise, and what do you think about communism?
I think communism sells. It's such a simple idea and message. It obviously doesn't work at all, but it's something that you could so easily say to a young, naive college person or young person in general. You can say everything should be free and healthcare should be free and universal and education should be free, but people don't really understand the ramifications behind that statement. So, I mean, this is nothing new. People have been trying to sell the idea of socialism and communism for years and years and years. I mean, obviously in pre-Soviet Russia, you had communism. That's where a lot of it started. You had the Mensheviks and the Bolsheviks, and the Mensheviks were kind of like your mainstream run-of-the-mill Democrat, and then you had the Bolsheviks. This was way back in like the 1800s, 1900s, and the Bolsheviks came in. They were kind of like the DSA activists of today, and they said, well, the Mensheviks and the Democrats aren't being radical enough, and they aren't promising you all the things that we're promising you. We can give you free education and universal health care and all of these great things, and then they never deliver. So that happened back in the day. It's just like a recurring ideology. History is a big fat circle, and it's happening again because it's such an easy thing to sell, but it's never worked. Didn't work in Russia or the Soviet Union or China or Venezuela. Communism never works, but it's such an easy idea to try to convince people to vote others in with. So I hope that people read because those who know history do not repeat it. So we just have to teach kids why it doesn't work.
What does it mean to be a part of the DSA
It's not
and be
over,
a Democrat
guys.
socialist? What's that actually mean?
So
pretty good. What do
DSA
you guys
is the
think?
Democratic Socialists of America, and it's very, very scary. And the Democratic Socialists of America, they are using the Democratic wing of politics to Trojan horse all of their ideas through, but they're very different than mainstream Democrats. What these Democratic Socialists of America want to do is usher in communism and destroy America from within. And I'm not being dramatic when I say that, because there are many DSA members who are online all over X, you can look it up, saying we want to take down the American empire from within. We want to destroy Western civilization. They're vastly different from the left. They want to destroy all of the institutions that we hold near and dear here in America. They basically want to root out everything that our founders worked so hard to build and start again, just like the Bolsheviks did way back in the day. Repeating cycle, it's terrible.
Interesting fact came out that Zohran Mamdani actually makes more than the vice president and people like Pete Hegseth.
This is what's most hilarious to me, because he is an immigrant from Uganda. He came here and is experiencing one of the greatest American dream success stories. So his parents were not from here.
He also says America was built on white supremacy.
He said that? Of course he did. They all say that, but it's not. So he's an immigrant from Uganda, came here and is making more money than the vice president of the United States as the mayor of New York City, and he wants to tax you more money. But they never look inward. So the thing with these champagne socialists is they're always going to be looking to grab money from anybody but themselves, and they're going to enrich themselves in the process. So I'm not surprised at all that he's making more money than our vice president and many other high-ranking political officials. And what is Mamdani doing? He's the mayor of New York City. He's basically in charge of the subway systems, the trash cans, and keeping the streets clean. Somehow he's still managing to mess all of it up. But his role is not that intrusive, yet he's making so much money. And before this, his only other job was that he was a rapper. We need to bring back merit, and we need to kick these socialists out of the country.
Wow. What do you guys think of that one? I thought that was a good one. So there's Chico. So yeah, it's 6 o'clock tomorrow evening. Thank you, Maria. That just came out today. So it's a new one. So thanks, Mods, Kay, Carol, Lucy, Tim, White Eagle. And tomorrow is the 30th, right? Oh, wait, 31st. Or wait. I don't know what. Anyways, tomorrow is Friday, isn't it? What tomorrow is? Nope. Tomorrow's Thursday, the 30th. I thought tomorrow was Friday. So tomorrow's Thursday. So that means we might have Mel tomorrow, you guys. It's her Wacky Wednesday. But we might have a Mel video tomorrow. God bless everybody. Tomorrow's 3 o'clock. It's Thursday. I thought it was Friday. So 3 o'clock tomorrow. And then God bless everybody. Sit back. Stay safe, stay strong, keep the faith. There we go. Well, and what do you say, Chico? Huh? Stay safe, stay strong, get your faith, never give up, and signing off for Wednesday, Chico Dude and Ella and Ariella. Everybody have a good night. If anything develops, I'll come on. So tomorrow, have a good night, everybody.